Welcome to the Late Night with Chalky podcast.
Here we go. Friends and family, brothers and sisters, welcome to the Late Night with Chalky podcast.
Our guests this week, plural, are two longtime friends that took different paths in the surf world and eventually ended up working together 20 years later. Maybe somewhere down the line.
Yeah.
One is a household name and a legend to the sport.
Thank
A
you.
laundry list of accomplishments. Former WT surfer, finished number 7 in the world. What? He's a 2-time runner-up at Teahupoo. I'm gonna get butchered
What?
that. People are gonna say
Oh,
chopes.
boy.
What?
Teahupoo.
Yeah.
You know how they say it like 10 different ways. Sorry, you guys. And Trestles.
You didn't say it right.
And Trestles. He's an ESPN X Game MVP and gold medalist, 4-time Sunset Beach champ, 2-time Pipeline champ, Backdoor shootout champ, Haleiwa Pro Champ. Holy crap, this guy's
Sunset
dominated
fucking-
the North Shore.
Yeah.
And he was an invitee to the Eddie Aikau, super prestigious. And our second guest, who also rips and charges, spent many years traveling and living in Hawaii and Bali in search of the perfect wave. Waves, plural, again, why not?
Yeah.
No more than just one, we want lots.
Surf bum or nomad?
Yeah, and in 1998, while living in...
Turn nomad.
Yeah, right?
Surf bum.
And in 1998, while living in Bali, he befriended a factory owner who taught him the fundamentals of production. And with a few dollars to his name, selling some surfboards, he was able to fund a small batch of board shorts.
Able?
And the rest, he was able. Willing. He went on, fast forward 2 decades, and now he's a self-made, hardworking entrepreneur, built an incredible private label business, which is in the leader of premium quality apparel for men's, women's, kids, and toddlers. Fuck, this is a mouthful. You guys, when we have 2, there's a lot to talk about.
Yeah.
Yes, we welcome one of the most powerful surfers to ever step foot on a board, Mr. Poncho Sullivan.
Woo!
The king of mixing business with pleasure. Owner of Island Daze, Mr.
Aby Boy.
Aby Boy, Allouche.
Thank you for having me.
Yes.
Thank you. What a great introduction.
Holy
Dude.
shit.
I'm like exhausted already just to
Me
hear
too.
all those accolades.
I knew it was going to be too long, but we have 2 of you, so it's
It's all
like a double whammy.
Yeah,
We're honored. We're honored to be here.
Honored to be here.
You can't skimp on introductions when you
No.
have 2
Fuck,
prolific
dude.
characters.
Come on, bro.
Right?
It's part of my job. You do the social media and I do the intros.
Yeah, I do a lot, bro.
Well,
I do a hell of a lot more than you do.
I just look good.
All right. Who do we start with here?
Fuck.
Let's start with Mr. Aby Boy.
Yes, sir.
All right.
Aby Boy.
Um,
First, congratulations on all your success.
Thank
Yeah.
you. I
Fucking
appreciate
American
that.
dream right
Wow,
here.
yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
Like,
Great American
Never
Story.
dreamed, never dreamed that would actually, come together the way it did, and
Yeah.
that was never really the plan, honestly. Like, I was, born in Brooklyn, raised in Miami. About 17 years old, I moved to the Big Island of Hawaii.
But how did you find surfing?
Through skateboarding first. That's all we did.
In Miami?
in Florida. Yeah, in Florida, we just skateboarded around quite a bit from our houses to your friends' houses, and then started getting into like building ramps and all that stuff. And it was kind of my obsession, that and then baseball. That was kind of my deal.
Yeah.
The moment I found surfing, it was like skateboarding and surfing, and that was kind of the 2 things that.
What kind of
parallel.
skateboard did you have?
I had a Gator Rogowski. That was my go-to.
yeah.
That was my go-to. That I was like really,
Vision.
Vision Gator Rogowski, and then it
is
went.
that the one that had the little, like,
Yeah.
Checkerboard.
checkered?
And then
That's
it was like a
yeah.
pink. We customed it. We had like the grip tape, the pink and black, but we made it where it was like a design. We tear it, so it was like little tears.
Yeah.
And it was pretty damn cool. But we did everything. We made put these trucks and these wheels on this board, and the bearings. And when you're younger like that, you didn't have the money, the means, and you just
Swap it out with friends and-
you would Frankenstein the boards,
Yeah.
and it was rad.
What kind of trucks did you?
Independent all day.
Nice.
Yeah, wouldn't
Nice.
mess around.
Fucking nose guard,
kidding
tail
me?
kicker, fucking
Yeah.
rail ground.
In the beginning, yeah, everything.
Scopers.
Yeah, the kick plate. Your parents would put whatever they could to salvage the board, as long as
Yeah.
you had the rails and the nose guards, and
Yeah.
and then finally you just ditched all that. And it
Was there a lot of skateboarders that
not a lot? I mean, yeah, in the beginning it was like our core little crew, and then you get older and you go to like junior high, and then your circle would expand more, and then you start skating ramps and inviting people over, because I was actually a pretty good ramp builder. I was pretty into it. We build 4 to 6
Did you guys have
footers.
parks there?
No, we just have our homes.
Yeah.
We had a home where the front yard was just all open, and we would just do like quarter pipes in the beginning, and then it went to like 4-foot half pipes, 6-foot half pipes, and 12-foot half pipes. We were
Wow.
building. 12-foot by 12-foot, rolling the whole thing. And
You guys
we went for
built
it.
some shit.
Yeah, we built some shit, and it was cool. It was like, so what we'd do is we'd all meet up. We were all like kind of a little bit of
Still some
troublemakers.
plywood,
Yeah,
2x4s from
yeah.
the
We were in
construction site.
we were in a neighborhood where it was kind of up and coming. So every other week there'd be a new house being built,
you still the
and
one.
then we would skate. Yeah, all get together. We'd all have a meeting spot, and then. Okay, we're gonna freaking get 2x4s tonight, and we'd all just be like joust, like just skate back to my friend's house, unload, and then the next day we'd go to this place being built, and we would do plywood because they had a fresh stack of plywood.
Yeah.
And it was kind of like that, yeah. And then it was so bad where it would be like a new mayor would be running for whatever position for office, and we would actually take those signs because they were 1/4-inch ply.
Oh,
And we needed that to
Sheet
lay,
wrap.
yeah. So they got that intricate, but
So you would-
yeah.
What do you call it? Mount that plywood with the mayor's name on it.
No, the opposite. We flip it.
Oh, you flip it.
Yeah, we wouldn't.
That would've been funny.
That'd be too arrogant. Yeah.
Right in the front yard.
Yeah, that'd be a little too arrogant.
Clip and
Yeah.
later.
No,
Done.
do 2x4s. The two. Pop, upside like that, and then lay the plywood over that so it's
Yeah.
nice and strong. And then we had it dialed to where when it met, we knew it would have to be on the 2x4, so there was no kink.
Yeah.
We had it pretty damn dialed. But then, yeah, that's when the house we were building it at mainly with my buddy Golly's house, and he had an older brother Ronnie, and he would take us surfing. But he was a real kind of pretty badass, and he was. Just took us a couple times, and after that he was just like, "Oh, you guys are annoying."
Yeah.
We were just left on our own to take the bus to the beach all the time from
So
there.
what do you remember what kind of music and what kind of style you had back then?
Yeah. Music was such a big part of our lives. It was basically like a lot of Rush,
Yes.
Black Sabbath, Led
So
Zeppelin.
we're talking metal days.
Yeah, a lot of like that stuff for sure. A little bit of reggae and stuff like that. But yeah, it started off first like boogie boarding.
Yeah.
Like
We
for
all
like
did.
I think like
Fuck
a
yeah.
week or two, and then it was like, oh, this is all right. I'm over this. And then it went to longboarding, and then I longboarded for like a month. But I remember clear as day, the first time I ever rode the line, like actually rode the wall
Like
of the
the
wave.
face of the
Yeah,
wave.
because we grew up in Florida. We had a lot of chalk.
What was the local beach? That
Surfside.
Surfside.
Yeah, it
beach.
was my friend's Golly Go-Wasser's grandmother's apartment building. We'd leave all our junk there.
Little clubhouse there.
Yeah, it was killer. And we'd poach her food, and we were just like little.
So we're
surf
talking
rats.
Miami, right?
Yeah, well, we're talking Surfside. It's not true Miami yet. Like Miami, I see it as like South Beach, which is kind of like.
More downtown.
Yes, it's something you would go to when the waves are pumping. It's not something you go to every day. It's like an occasion.
But
you know.
close to
Yeah.
that's where you were.
Yeah,
Miami.
more or less.
Okay.
Yeah. Like it would be Bell Harbor, and then Surfside, and then that's kind of as far as we went to surf for a while.
Was
Like
it
that
close-
Miami was like more like the North Shore, like that was like down the line.
Yeah.
Like oh shit.
So there was like a jetty or piers or something or anything?
Surfside was just a wide open beach break with
beach.
like little peaks up and down the beach, and then once we got better, we would surf like Harbor House
Mm.
and then haul over. That's where the older dudes, like the guys that knew what they were doing, would
Yeah.
surf, and then we'd surf Newport Pier. Those were the three spots that when you graduated. But one thing I didn't want to do, and I was cognizant of it, was I knew I wasn't in that caliber. I wasn't ready for that. I didn't want to get in anybody's way or anything. So we just stuck to our little beach breaks with
Yeah.
nobody around for miles. Kind of cut our teeth on that crap, and then went, okay, we can actually surf now. I mean, we progressed pretty quickly because we were skateboarding and surfing like as much as we could.
Yeah.
So it's pretty cool.
Was there a type of localism?
No. In regards to what we did and where we were, there were nobody. But when we finally did make our way to those
Other spots.
3 spots, yeah, there were. But I mean, honestly, like I always, even to today, I kind of stay away from the pack, and I'm not like trying to get in the mix with 40 hungry guys. It was just never my thing. It just seemed like a waste of time.
You're not Jay Larson and Poncho Sullivan school of aggressiveness.
Well, shit. Look, if you had our stature, bro, you just could go and take over, bro. Just kidding.
So longboarding first.
Yeah, longboarding first. Once I rode the line, I had that feeling. I can still remember the whole situation of the day and the feeling of just riding that line and like gliding, and went, I'm gonna do this forever. I already know.
Because riding the whitewater, even though you think it's easy going straight, it's pretty turbulent and whatever. It kind of fucking, it's not not easy. But when you get on the wave, you don't feel that. You're just fucking.
Oh, it's just like it's crazy. Yeah.
Each little step of progression, you almost have it etched in your brain.
Yeah, it's
like the whitewash takeoff, fumbling, making it to your feet, and like putting your arms out to steady yourself, and then you go, holy shit, I stood up on a board, and you go as far as you can, and you do that for however long, and then what you're talking about, like, because like to catch a wave and paddle into a wave and stand up before it breaks and start sliding.
Yeah.
When you start angling and sliding, and
game changer.
Yeah, it is.
Dude,
it's game over.
That's when you're like
hooked.
You're fucking hooked. Like there's no stopping you now.
Yeah.
And the speed, everything changes. The waves are probably exactly the same when you're going straight, but you go out and angle and you're on the wave.
Yeah.
That's surfing.
You're fucking booking.
That's surfing.
Yeah.
Because whitewash surfing is
it's fundamentals, right? Like that. I think about it. Like when you take off on a wave, the first thing you're doing is trying to knife it and go down the line.
Yeah.
And then you set that up.
Your transition from longboard to shortboard, was it like hand me down? Some of your buddies had shortboards, like.
Yeah, that's exactly it. It was they were a little bit further advanced than I was, maybe like 6 months. But when you're younger, 6 months is like years. It feels like, So it was like a swap out kind of thing. Like, oh, let me try that. And then my first board, I shared it with my older brother Ben. Remember, we actually looked in the newspaper, and some guy was selling a natural art surfboard, like a little like 5'8", and we like took the bus to get it, got it, and took the wax off, and we were like, can we surf today? We didn't even know what the waves were doing. Just went to the beach. It was like knee high.
How much did it cost?
It was like $200.
Fuck.
Yeah. It was still kind of expensive. Yeah, it was like almost like brand newish kind of board. But we shared it, and we were like, okay, whatever. It's our Hanukkah gift, and my dad.
What was the shaper?
Natural art. I don't remember the shaper actually, but I remember natural art. I remember it being like a colorful, like,
which is a big brand.
Yeah, back in the day, they didn't have a lot of. They didn't have a ton of shapers though. Natural art. I think they had like 2 or 3
Rick
really
Lore.
good shapers.
That name comes up.
Yeah, I don't remember that exactly, but
yeah,
it was a good board. I remember it, but then I remember upgrading. It was actually a thruster.
Nice.
And then I remember like trying to upgrade pretty quick after like using it and sharing it. I was like, fuck this shit. I'm not sharing a board with my brother.
Yeah.
I need my own.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's like you don't want to sit on the beach and watch and take turns.
Taking turns was over.
Yeah.
Plus he was like wasn't the sharing type.
And he's older, right?
Yeah.
Like,
I have to respect him. Yeah.
Fuck you, Aby Boy.
Sit there and mind surf it all like for 2 hours, and
you're like waving it. Come on, man. And he's like, one more.
Yeah, exactly.
He said one more.
Was there like a surf shop like you guys hung local? Who's shop?
For sure. The big like spot we would all hang out at, and just this was our temple, was Bird Surf Shop. It was everything. Yeah, Bird Surf Shop was everything. Carl Hahn was the father, and then Dave Hahn was the son, and it was the coolest place in the world for us.
Is it still around now?
Nah, they were done for a while. But what's interesting is that we'll get back to that later. But as my company started developing, they were actually really big supporters in the end, which was pretty damn cool. Because you get surf shops that are like. They're proud of you and all that, of your success and what you've done, and local boy makes good, but they don't show it by supporting and whatever. But Bird actually put his money where his mouth was when I, during like 9/11, for example, he was one of my biggest customers, and he kept was going that direction where it was like the brands weren't maybe performing for him and it wasn't necessary at the time, and he basically committed to my line and did everything private label, and it was really cool. And but yeah, Bird Surf Shop was the place. It was the meeting place. It was he did the surf reports, and they were characters, and they were awesome guys. It was like
you guys surfed there,
like surfer owned surf shop.
Yeah, it was so pure, and they had the biggest selection of surfboards on the East Coast.
Dang.
So you'd go down the line, and it would be from like assorted by sizes, and it would just start out like as a small shortboard and go all the way up to like 8.0s, and it was like every day it'd just be like just freaking out. And obviously we couldn't afford boards there because they were just out of hand. They were like Eric Arakawa's and all these phenomenal shapers. But I remember always just wanting a Town and Country. Just I don't know what it was, but Town and Country. The logo,
the
just
gorilla.
the Sonny Garcia, just everything about it. Oh my God, the characters, the little.
I had 2 TNC shirts, and my mom's like, "You can't wear it to school; it's got holes in it." I'm like, "I'm not taking this thing off." I even wore it to school pictures. She's like, "You can't wear that; it's got like a hole in the collar." I'm like, and I tried to lift up to get the logo in the photo. I remember sitting and like leaning back and like, "Fuck, can I get the little logo in there?"
That's so funny. We did yearbook pictures.
4th and 5th grade. Yeah. I swear, I'll have to find them, and you can barely see like before it gets like Photoshop, not Photoshop, but it would phase out. Like
it's funny, even different generations. I don't know why, but like Town Country, Sex Wax, Zog shirts, right? Those were like the shirts that everybody.
I mean, Maui and Sons, and Gotcha.
Catch It was pretty big. Surf Weights for No One.
I mean, that's how they survived on my classics.
Yep.
Yeah.
All right.
Ponch. Yeah.
Before we go into Ponch, I wanted to say both these guys deserve their own episode. But the reason why we're sitting here all together is because, we'll let people know we're representing Island Daze.
Fuck
and
yeah,
boys!
Launch the partnership.
Yes.
Fucking,
we're gonna blow this up, and we're gonna take care of our surf shops and everybody that needs private label.
Yeah, make sure our retailers are healthy and they're doing well. They got the margins, and we keep evolving as they keep growing. We grow with them, and
putting on par premium product with all the big labels.
But yeah, so each guy
love it.
Gets their own episode down the line, but the reason why we're doing it all together, we wanted to make sure that everyone knew what's going down.
Yeah, we want to thank you guys too. It's a leap of faith anytime you do commit to something.
Yep.
There's always that this moment of trepidation on both sides. Actually, we don't we both have to show commitment, and we appreciate it, and we know you guys are complete professionals, and we feel really good about it, and
or the best name in the business. So.
Yeah, exactly. But we're excited about the opportunity, and we're grateful to have you guys on board for sure.
First of many, right here.
Yeah. Yep.
All right,
Poncharello, the Ponch.
Where did it all begin, bro?
Well, as far as my first time surfing,
growing up.
Growing up, I was initially exposed to surfing. I was born in a hippie commune called Taylor Camp. It was a 11-acre piece of property on Kauai that was owned by Elizabeth Taylor's brother. And,
what? The actress?
Yes.
Wow.
And so he let a bunch of hippies live on his property, and my mom stumbled across Taylor Camp in 1972 after hiking on the Poly Trail, and thought this is it. I found
it's like a commune.
Yeah, I found Shangri-La. These people are living off the land. They're having bonfires. They're playing volleyball. They're growing all their own food. They're hiking the Nepali Trail.
Yeah.
And so it was this real eclectic mix of people. A few people from all over, from Berkeley, from New York. Some people that had just come out of Vietnam and were sort of decompressing from that whole experience. And then there was a bunch of surfers.
Say the name again? Taylor Camp.
Taylor Camp. Yeah. And so there was a bunch of surfers that were living there because there was a few different really good waves out front, and some of my earliest memories were kind of crawling around on the beach there, playing in the stream, and then the guys coming in after surfing and then just throwing their boards on the beach, and then I'd crawl around on the boards, and one of my earliest memories was actually paddling over waves. We had hiked in the Kalalau Valley and somebody had on the beach had offered us a ride back to Honolulu on their sailboat, and so the only way to get out to the boat, you can't bring the boat all the way in.
Yeah.
Was on a surfboard, and so I remember going over the waves as we paddled out on the nose of the board, holding on, and I think that like somehow subconsciously that just kind of
That's freaking
stuck
awesome.
in my mind, and I was like
How old were
instantly
you?
drawn. I was probably at that stage. I was probably only around 3 or 4.
Damn.
And, I didn't start actually surfing until I was probably maybe around 7 or 8.
Yeah.
Wasn't the first time I kind of remember standing up on a board for the first time.
But that feeling of not touching the ground,
Yeah.
feeling
Yeah.
the power of the ocean.
Just the weightlessness of
Yeah.
being over
Yeah.
the wave. I was
That-
like, this is. I'll never forget. That
How cool.
experience.
That
of
rush
going over like.
Yeah.
That's so cool.
And
And watching surfers do it.
Yeah,
and
yeah.
then
I would watch
in
guys.
your mind, you're doing the same thing.
Yeah, I would watch them walk out, off the beach
That's
at
so
camp
rad.
Yeah.
and paddle out to. There's a few different spots, and they disappear around the corner. And
Come back stoked. You're like, what the hell did they do around the corner?
Yeah, whatever they were doing, they had a blast.
So,
and,
not to pry into the situation, but your mom, did you have was your dad out of the
no,
picture?
my dad was completely out of the picture
Okay.
from before I was born.
Okay.
Yeah, and so she went to home to visit her parents, and then found out she was pregnant, and then called her best friend, or her best friend actually called her. She stayed there at Taylor Camp, and my mom was like, I'm pregnant, I'm not sure what I'm gonna do, I'm freaked out, I can't tell my parents, they're gonna lose their minds.
Wow.
And she was like, just come back to Taylor Camp and have your baby here. And she was like, okay.
Yeah.
Sound like
Yeah,
You know,
yeah.
just
she
like-
was 18 years old.
Dang.
And so she did. She went back there, and I was born in a treehouse, and we lived there until I was probably like 3, I think. And then we moved down the road and into a home right in front of another surf spot out there in Hyena. And eventually, I think we were only there for about 1.5 years, and then we moved to the North Shore of Oahu. But that was
At
my
what age
first-
at North Shore?
4.
4. Wow.
Yeah. Well, actually, initially we didn't move straight to the North Shore. We moved to the east side of the island, little kind of area called Punaluu, and there happened to be just this little kind of soft river mouth right in front of where we lived, and my neighbor, who became one of my best friends, his name was Frank, but everybody called him Poncho. So we were Poncho and Pancho.
That's awesome.
And I lived right behind him, and his stepdad, John, had a surfboard. He didn't really surf, but he had a surfboard.
Yeah.
And he
You're in
would
Hawaii,
take,
you gotta have a surfboard.
yeah. And it was like just enough of it was the perfect wave to kind of start surfing on, because it was really soft. And so for us at that age, even though we're so little, we were never in jeopardy of getting pounded or anything like that. But he would walk the 3 of us across the street. He had a younger brother named Dominic, and we'd walk across the street, and he would make us deliberately tread water, and we would take turns. So we were getting, didn't think about it at the time, but we were getting stronger and being
Smart.
able to just be
Instead
in
of
the
going
water.
in and
Yeah, he wouldn't let us sit on the beach, and I think we were too frothed out where we were like,
Let's burn these kids out.
like, well, I want my turn. Like, I'm not gonna wait on the beach and then I'll just swim out.
Yeah.
But as soon as he falls, I'm on it. And so we would take turns riding that board, and from that moment on, I was like, oh man, I want to do this every day.
Was it a longboard too, or is it kind
No,
of
it was I remember it being like a
just
70s style single fin, almost like probably around a 7.0, like a mini gun.
Yeah.
And it was just kind of a log.
Yeah. Good for you guys, stable and just like easy to catch waves.
I remember he was just pushing us in, and I don't remember like really, using that board and catching waves on my own. It wasn't until I begged my mom for a board, and then one of her co-workers actually was a guy that surfed really well, lived right at Sunset Beach and worked up at Turtle Bay, and she worked a deal out where she could make some payments on a board, and my first board was actually a Dick Brewer twin fin.
Damn.
Like a hand-me-down kind of, second-hand board, and that got me started. I started surfing every day. I would walk across by myself, like no one else. They didn't have the bug I had. I wanted to surf, all the time. So.
And how old was this? At 7 or 8?
Probably around 7 or 8.
Yeah.
And then I would say like within a year, we had moved over to the North Shore, and then that was like where I graduated from surfing just this really, really soft wave, and I thought I knew how to surf, and then all of a sudden, we get over there and the waves are moving, 100 times faster, way more powerful. And
Couple feet overhead.
Yeah, I just remember being a really humbling experience, and like, I met these other group of kids, and they were like, "Oh, do you surf?" And I was like, "Yeah, I surf." And they're like, "Yeah, let's go." And we paddled out, and I was just completely out of my element, like kind of freaked out. And I felt almost, I felt really humbled. Like, I thought I knew how to surf, but I didn't really know how to surf, because this is way out of my league.
And when you're a kid, like, you believe that. Like, when you think you are good at something, you fucking think it.
Yeah.
And even when these waves are small over there, there's so much current undertow, and like whether you're at the sandbar or some of the reefs, it's like it's pretty intimidating for sure.
But I find something interesting is that how cognizant you were at such a young age that you felt defeated, like humbled by that.
Yeah.
Like how, that's pretty cool. Like at a young age, you're already so like modest and humble. Like, damn, I gotta learn all over again. You know what I mean? It's pretty cool. Like I gotta freaking now learn this side of the island and how to surf this wave. And
were those kids ripping too? Or
yeah,
pretty cool.
Well, they were paddling right to the peak, catching set waves, and all
duck diving.
Duck diving.
You probably
actually, I don't even know if they're back then all the boards were so wide and thick. I think we were kind of like trying to duck dive, but not really. And
cool.
But I was like, wow, these guys. I think there was a combination of the waves being so much more powerful, bigger than anything I had surfed, and then watching them. And they were older than I was, probably a year or two older than I was. But I just remember being blown away, going, I want to get to that level. Yeah. That's amazing.
We talk about it all the time. It's like when you're that young, 2 or 3 years older is so much older.
You mentioned 6 months just like beginning your conversation.
It's huge.
Because it's like their talent level. I mean, a year surfing
and
versus
experience and
not,
strength, everything.
I mean, you don't know, like the talent, and just they're way more ahead of your knowledge. You know, you like their surfing,
their strength, everything was.
It's wild.
I was coming off of living in Punaluu. Like, even though I was surfing, I was still like, I was kind of like a jungle kid. We were going up into the valley, having rotten guava wars. Like
island life, right?
Climbing around, like in the playing tag in the trees.
Yeah, Tarzan shit.
Tarzan. So then it was like all of a sudden, once we moved over to the Sunset area, it was like the ocean was the primary focus.
Yeah.
Aside from like soccer season or whatever.
Yeah.
If there wasn't a sport, there was very few. Maybe there was a baseball season, a soccer season. That was it. So that was the only sports.
It's got to be such a trip,
cool.
like coming from that small little surf spot, not even a surf spot, and thinking that's surfing, and that's the world of surfing, and then going a couple miles down the road and having sunset, and you're like, what the fuck?
It blew my mind.
Like this is surfing.
Yeah.
And
it doesn't matter where you're at. You could be on the coast here and you surf, the spot that's closest to you or the easiest to get in and out or safest or whatever, and then you go surf somewhere else and it's only a couple miles away or just around the corner, and you're like,
holy shit,
whoa, what's this place? Like, I remember Newport was like, Huntington gets pretty intense shore break. It breaks far out, and you got to be pretty strong. But Newport is like half the size of the wave, blast you.
Twice the power.
Twice the power. It's intense.
Yeah, like for us, the same thing. Like we grew up surfing the chop and all that crap. Then we went up coast to like Sebastian Inlet, and we'd see Kelly and Shea Lopez and all these guys, and we're like, oh my god, it's the Mecca. And the waves were so like just different. These wedges and almost like proper waves. You were like just blown away.
Yeah.
And that juxtaposition is always pretty cool. Even now, till today, Like anytime you see that.
Yeah, when you even hear like Huntington gets good, like there's some epic days at Huntington, but if you take an average day of Huntington and an average day at Lowers, it's like night and day.
Oh yeah, for sure.
Yeah, not even close. Did you make good friends right away when you moved to, like, having that like passion for surf and getting out there?
Yeah, I did. I think what really helped was, I started surfing a little bit, but not long after we moved over there, I wanted to play baseball really bad, and it was the first baseball season, and so I don't know how I registered or how I figured it out, but somehow figured out that
tryouts
they were already underway. That's what it was. They had already started. And I think I might have gone by the field and I saw them practicing and I was like, oh, I want to play baseball. And I walked up and I talked to the coach. It was Eddie Aikau, who was a famous windsurf shaper and surfboard shaper. Anyway, he was the coach. His son played on the team, and that just Sean Briley was on that team. Jack Johnson was on that team. So it just kind of opened the door to all
Are
the
they
kids
the same
in
age
neighborhood.
group? Those guys?
Yeah, those guys are both at 1 year younger than I am.
Okay.
But you know, it just opened the door to friendships with all these kids. And there was actually enough kids in the neighborhood that we had 2 separate teams. So across the way was my good friend Orion, Jesse, a whole other group of kids at Blake that we all became friends kind of from just playing baseball on the field, and all of them surfed. If they weren't like hardcore into surfing, they were either like body surfing the shore break, you know, boogie boarding, sand sliding, but it was just, everything was based around being at the beach all day.
Yeah.
And then back then at Sunset, this was before the beachfront kind of got built up. There was this empty lot right in front of a little inside reform area called Shores, and then Sunset proper is out the back. But that became basically our clubhouse because the lot was empty and there was these trees that kind of hung over the beach, so there was plenty of shade. And so we would all just go there. I mean, if you didn't have anything to do, you just went to Shores because guaranteed there was 3, 4, 5, 10 people you knew just kind of lingering on the beach, hanging out, doing whatever, you know, jumping in the water.
And it's not like a spot that's going to be crowded.
No.
Yeah, it's like kind of tucked away, good for the groms.
Yeah, it's like just an inside reform. Yeah. So it was like no matter how big Sunset got, we could still surf. And then if it was small enough, then we'd paddle out the back and try to surf a point or over to Val's Reef or.
Yeah.
But yeah, so it was like all the kids that lived around, basically from kind of Rocky Point all the way to Velzy Land, everyone would kind of congregate down there and just hang out on the beach and surf. And
now, before you moved to the North Shore, had you seen big waves yet, like the North Shore turn on?
No, I'd only ever seen the waves in front of Taylor Camp, and you know, once we moved to Oahu and we're in Punalu'u, like we didn't really, you know, travel around much, like on the island.
Yeah.
I kind of just hung out in the valley. My mom worked at Turtle Bay. It was the Hyatt Kuilima back then, and her best friend lived in the house next door to us, and they had 2 kids, and we just kind of there was probably a 2-3 year period where we were just valley, you know, venturing through the valley. My good friend, his grandfather had a pig farm way back in the valley and a, you know, sweet potato farm, and we'd go back up there and feed the pigs, and it was kind of just like, you know, just
full on island life.
Country living, yeah. So
simple.
So I asked that because I want to know if you remember the first time you woke up and felt like the ground rumbling or heard the waves. Like,
yeah, because anybody's been over there, whether you're sleeping or just hanging, you feel
that energy.
Yeah, it was definitely like, you know, when we first moved over to the Sunset area, it was like I never realized waves got that big.
Yeah.
It was like, oh my gosh, I'm not paddling out there today. And then, you know, and then all of a sudden realizing like, oh, there's Jesse, like he's, you know, playing in the shore break. I'm gonna go join him. And then you're just getting beat, you know, in the shore break, tumbled around, and then getting more comfortable in the water. And
isn't it like like mind blowing when you're a surfer and that young, and then not seeing waves that big, and then finally seeing waves that big, and then seeing surfers
this lined up, fucking out there, boom,
right?
Boom, boom.
You're like sitting there going, whoa, like these guys are fucking crazy.
Yeah.
These guys are gnarly. These guys rip. You know what I mean? Like you're like, wow.
Well, just paddling out to where you can't see them anymore.
Yeah.
You know, you just see whitewater and they're like, you know, half a mile out to sea.
Yeah.
Because in your mind, you're like, someday,
Yeah.
you know, someday
I remember having
I'm going to start it in the shore break, but maybe someday I'll get out there.
Yeah, I remember having that realization, like hanging out on the beach, and because all of my friends had grown up, you know, in that area. They were used to seeing like, you know, Bobby Owens and you know, Tom Curran was starting to show up, and all these different high level surfers from all over the world. They already knew who they were, and I didn't know who anybody was. I was like, who's that? Like, you know, I was kind of naive to that side of it, but because they had already started to see that first wave of semi-professional surfers migrating to the North Shore and surfing.
Here's another thing that I think is probably interesting to hear like, here you are, you move there, and then when the first contest, you know, and all the pros start showing up, right? Because you see local heroes, right? You're like, oh my god, that guy fucking rips.
Yeah.
Oh my god.
There's only a couple events in the entire, you know, whole year, so it's pretty
So when
empty, and then all of a sudden, like,
the circus comes to town.
The Sunkist Pro back in the day, right? Like,
and it's like the OP for us growing up. It
Yeah.
was like,
You get exposed to that.
what the fuck? Yeah.
and you have all these different like accents, and but then, like you said, Tom Curran, and Shane Horan, and
guys
Sean
are on,
Thompson,
the guys are on
Rabbit.
every magazine cover. They're on the spread. They're like,
Yeah.
they're the fucking man.
Yeah, and so it was cool to all of a sudden be at a place where, you know, I just kind of joined the pack of like running down to the contest site, and Randy Rarick kind of, you know, he would line us all up. There'd be like 10, 15 kids, and he'd be like, okay, you guys clean this side of the road, you guys clean that side of the road, and we'd pick up trash and do whatever we could just to get some swag. At the end, he'd like whatever promo, like zinc, and you know, we were all stoked if we got a sticker or a shirt or anything like that. I was like, yes, that was awesome.
Cultivating the next
Grom Island life right there.
Yeah,
you'll be here soon, Groms. Don't worry. Well, and you went to Sunset Elementary.
Yeah, I went to Sunset Beach Elementary. I actually started at Teahupoo Elementary when we moved over from Punaluu. I started school in Hauula at kindergarten, and then when we moved over to Sunset, I went there 1 year, and then I ended up at Teahupoo, and went to Teahupoo all the way through high school, and it was just, you know, lived in that area. We kind of moved to a few different houses. Never stayed in one house growing up the whole time.
But in that 7 mile stretch.
Yeah, from all the way from Turtle Bay all the way to kind of Sunset area.
So when did you start like getting good and like starting like venturing to, you know, all the other spots? Because what was your first like?
What's the pecking order for a Grom? You know, like is Rockies kind of like the?
Yeah, I think nowadays Rockies is definitely is, and it was at that time. I felt like it was sort of like wherever you. I mean, it's still a lot like wherever you lived. You know, like Jack and Josh Lionel and Abe and Adam Lerner and those guys. They kind of stayed down by pipe because either they lived right there, or the Lerners, their dad would bring them down to Ehukai to the tower. So they kind of cut their teeth surfing like Pupukea and Ehukai, and then there was like Peter Cole Jr. and they lived right at Rocky Point, so they were surfing Rockies, and then we were all up at Sunset because it just whenever it was big, like we could still surf. Yeah. But when it would drop, pretty much Sunset Point was kind of the go-to. Backyards was like the first wave that we started sort of venturing over from Sunset into Backyards. Kind of a shallow wave. We were all, sort of a little haired. I don't remember anybody's parents really having any clue where anybody was. Like, we were just on our own, doing our own thing. There was no...
The good old days.
Okay, guys, if the waves
come back
are big,
when the lights
wow,
on.
you're like,
no lights come on.
Yeah, exactly.
There was no
no guidance.
The buoy's like 15 feet, 22 seconds. You got, at 3 o'clock, you need to be out of the water. It was like,
that's how.
I had no idea. There was no sunscreen.
I think that was just our era, same here. Like, okay, just be home by dark.
So
what's funny, he's saying is like, the reports will tell you when it's gonna max out.
Yeah.
And in Hawaii, it maxes out, right? Like where it could be playful for an hour and then death-defying the next. Yeah. Right?
Yeah.
And here you guys are like, fuck it, we're out here, I'm charging. And then all of a sudden, like, whoa.
Everybody gets cleaned up by a freaking roadway.
Time to head in.
Yeah.
So then was learning and mastering Sunset a long process, or did you like?
Yeah, I think that it's such a unique wave that has so many different feels to it. Like depending on the direction, the size, it's a very imperfect kind of reef. There's all these sort of long diagonal channels that run through the reef in dead spots. So depending on the direction, the size, the winds, that's what I think I was so drawn to that wave was the variety, how challenging it was, and just watching, some of the guys that I looked up to, watching them surf it and the way that they would take off out the back and fade on these.
Who are you talking about? Like, Who were the first
you
like
mentioned
impression?
Bobby Owens, who like was
Well, I feel like, I mean, for me, Bobby Owens, the way that he would compress when he would come off the bottom, he was a guy that I saw, he would start to initiate his bottom turn like mid-face. And he would compress and not go, it's such a deep water wave that if you go too far down in, you know, to the bottom of the wave before you initiate the bottom turn, you lose all the drive down the line, and then chances are you're not going to make it all the way through that inside bowl section. So I would start watching him, and then, you know, guys like Gary Elkerton blew my mind. He would go way out the back and just, you know, catch these bombs and fade. And, you know, Michael Ho was always a guy that, you know, seemed to, just his positioning in the lineup, he'd always catch the best waves.
Yeah.
I mean, it just goes on and on. There's been so many guys over the years that you know, have influenced my surfing, not just there, but, you know, I think it was a special time growing up on the North Shore. There was no, you know, there wasn't really a lot of pressure for any of us to, like, you know, be competitive or successful in that sort of realm. And we were just watching these guys that were doing that.
Yeah.
And, you know, it wasn't really a legitimate sport where there was any money. Everybody was doing it for the love.
It was like the first generation of you know, really talented surfers, and the second generation of surfers were just starting to come on, which is like the Kerns and those guys. So it hasn't been like those generational changes where, like you said, you weren't groomed at an early age to be like, oh yeah, you're gonna do this.
Did you start surfing amateur HSAs?
Yeah, eventually I did. You know, I surfed them for a little while. Like, we were dirt poor, single mom, you know, working, struggling just to survive.
Do you have siblings, or?
I have a half sister who's 22, but not from my mom, from my dad. And so it was, you know, really tough. But I was very fortunate that Karen Gallagher owned Sunset Beach Surf Shop, which was next to Cammie's Market. It was like,
is that Chris Gallagher's
mom?
Yes. Yeah. Tiny little surf shop. And
she's been brought up before.
Yeah, she was.
She fostered all of the kids.
She was like the North Shore mom, second mom. Like every kid, Kalani Robb. I mean, you name it. She would give you her give the kids her last dollar to help them, you know, just keep them out of trouble, feed them. You know, she would help buy surfboards for the kids. She would pay for entry fees.
Crazy.
And we're talking about a surf shop that's like, that was like 150 square feet. It was tiny. But she was able to, like, you know, sell wax, and she had a film processing back in the film days. She would process all the surf photographers' film through the shop. They would go shoot pipe or wherever, come to the shop, fill out their, you know, film.
She was the Kodak
and she would run everything to Honolulu and process all their film and bring it all back.
Awesome. Wow.
That's straight. Because a lot of photographers were pretty, running lean too on funds and stuff. And, you know,
everybody on the North Shore back then.
Nobody had cars. You know, a lot of people didn't have cars.
Wasn't a lot of money in surfing back then.
No,
not yet at least.
And there was not, you know, there was very few businesses on the North Shore. It was very quiet.
Yeah.
You know, especially outside of the peak surf season. I mean, we'd hardly get any tourists or traffic out there at all. It was really quiet.
Yeah.
It's hard to imagine.
Yeah.
It being a sleepy,
the way it is.
Well, we talked to like Herbie Fletcher and some others that, like, you know, came over real early, and it's like, there's only a few houses on the North Shore, you know, and it was just dirt roads, and like
it's funny, you know, you bring them up and what DB and Herbie said about puka shells.
Yeah.
Like the beach was full of huge puka shells.
Yeah.
Like, and she's like, you go there, you don't see them anymore.
There was tons of sunrise shells and
sunrise shells were
like
super
people over the, you know, decades have just depleted the puka shell.
But like everybody just like, hey, we'll just go pitch a tent, live out of her car, like you know, like it was freaking gnarly back in the day.
Yeah. It was very
a little
rootsy.
Wild West almost.
Yeah, it was a Wild West.
Cool. Did you surf any amateur contests?
No, I never got into any contest. Honestly, it wasn't really my direction in life. I just kind of
free surf and just
traveled a lot. I just traveled the world. I always wanted to live in all these cool places. So when I was 17, I graduated high school a year early. I did some extra credit work for like 3 summers, and then ended up going, I hated living in Miami as a kid because the waves kind of sucked.
Yeah.
So I was like,
travel.
Well, yeah, that was the thing. I was like, I'm gonna move to Hawaii, and then I moved to the Big Island in 1991.
So the waves, like magazines.
Before we go to Hawaii,
Yeah.
when you're in Miami, did you travel up and down the coast at all?
Oh yeah, it was funny on the way over here. We were talking to Poncho about that. That was like the thing. That was like our little like just getaway and little road trips up coast all the time. So we would surf our local beaches and then like
Sebastian was like
the go-to, and then Spanish House and Melbourne. And for me, the first time ever going up was with my friend Jared Margolis. His father owned Sportsman's Paradise, which they sold surfboards and amongst other things. And he had an RV. We went to Fort Pierce, and I remember it's like looking back, felt like it was like a 5-hour journey, and meanwhile it was like an hour and a half drive. But when you're ground, you're just so impatient. But I remember finally getting there, and it was like a pure like 4 to 6 foot.
Wow.
Beautiful winter swell, ground swell, and it was just, we walked up and I just never seen waves like that in my life and just freaked out. I went, holy crap, this is insane.
What age, 16, 15?
No, I was probably about, I would say 14 and a half.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was a neighborhood kid.
So you're hopping rides with other surfers, neighbors?
At the time, just parents. Yeah, no one drove. So it was just all just like...
this is the first like Florida real waves. 4 to 6 foot.
I remember like it was yesterday, pulling up, walking down that little trail, just thinking we're gonna see the same shit we learned how to surf on, and then just this, like, what the hell is going on here? And just like real waves breaking, define lefts, define rights, and just went, oh my god, this is like crazy.
Where are we at?
Yeah, like I didn't
we're
know.
We're not in Florida anymore.
I didn't know waves like those were real waves, and I didn't know those really existed. And then when I went out and actually took off and went, okay, this is like actually proper waves, like legit waves. And it's funny because I still surf that same spot to today, and I always have that similar feeling when I walk up and go, I'll never forget that. That's like so like ingrained in my memory because it was just such a pure moment in my childhood. Yeah. So it was amazing.
And surf. So before Hawaii, any other like travel out of the country?
Oh yeah. My parents were, my dad's from Marseille, France, and my mom's from Lebanon. So we really didn't have like that. We had, obviously they were great parents and all that, but I don't know if they were trusting or whatever. But we went to Costa Rica, my brother and I, very young, like by ourselves. Like I was probably 15 and he was 16.
Wow.
And the first thing we did when we landed was go to duty free and buy a bottle of J&B like booze, like whiskey.
Internationally.
It was the weirdest thing. We ended up with this huge bottle of J&B.
We need your passport and ticket. No, we don't want to get in trouble. No, we need.
And we ended up like literally figuring out our way how to get from.
Somebody told you go to Costa Rica.
Yeah, and we got
from San Jose to Hermosa to Jaco.
Yeah. Jaco was our spot.
Shitty beach break.
And but at the time, dude, at the time we were just
better than Florida.
Yeah, we were starting to kind of like cut our teeth on like some bigger, crazier stuff, and I remember just getting held down a lot. And then my brother, I always like he's older than me, but I always kind of like made sure he was okay. He had asthma and stuff. He was a little bit not as like crazy as I was in general, and so I'd always like kind of have to look after him. But I just remember just like me getting pounded coming up, and I was just thinking like, shit, if I'm getting worked, like getting scared, I wonder what he's going through. So he would just be on the beach sometimes, and I would just go in and, hey, you okay? Like, all right, let's go back out. We go back out together, and then but we'd pick off shoulders and get good waves, and then our big like kind of step up was actually taking a cab and going to Hermosa. And then going, oh my God, we should have been going here the whole time. And then
because Jaco is a little bit of a bay type beach break where it's not as thick lipped and it's a little feathery, but it's Hermosa is like a little bit more open. And
it is, water. And it's more defined. But we befriended the lifeguard there. This guy Carlos gave him some of our JB booze, whiskey, and he just became our buddy. And then he's the one that kind of told us about Hermosa. Everything was so rootsy. There was no like. Everything. Nothing was mapped out. It was literally just like playing it by ear.
Yeah. But most of the people were appreciative of just tourism in general, and they're stoked. Like you're coming here, oh yeah, there's a wave down the beach, or hey, this tide. Like people are pretty open to like.
So when
not
you
rush you.
When you told your parents, hey, we're gonna go to Costa Rica, they're like, all right, cool.
Yeah, literally, because like in our neighborhood, back then we'd have travel agencies. And I was just ahead of my time for being so young or whatever. But I remember skateboarding over to the travel agent, getting it all dialed, figuring out the hotel and the transfers and all that shit. My brother didn't do jack. He never did anything. He was so fucking...
It's like late night on this podcast.
Yeah. Maybe,
I was a Boy Scout traveling though.
But he's a great brother. Honestly, my older brother Ben was a phenomenal brother growing up. He was a mentor to me, and he actually like helped me, mold me into who I became.
Yeah.
So it was really cool in his subtle way. You
Yeah.
know, he never preached anything to me, but he just had a way. But I remember that, like, having it all packaged up. And then just telling my parents what it cost and what we wanted to do, and I just had a direction.
So they felt confident based. You
Yeah.
had done your homework.
Yeah.
It's all set up.
That was it.
Yeah.
And we were on our way, and that was it. And it wasn't a big deal. And
Summertime trip, obviously out of school.
Yeah, having parents that were immigrants and they were international, and so we'd take our vacations. We'd go to like, Paris and Marseille and all these different foreign places. So for us, traveling at like 3, 4, 5 or whatever it is to go see my dad's family was not a big deal. So being on a plane was like second nature, And we grew up pretty much like lower class and then middle, and then sort of my dad sort of found his way after that.
And we talk about how important it is to travel and how it
Oh, yeah.
molds the person you are, and
Right.
just
It's better education than education.
Yeah.
well,
yeah.
it depends, but for sure. I
Right.
mean, it's just to deal with the language barrier, that travels, the logistics.
Oh, yeah.
Having to like be a little street smart and not sure you're like going, just being aware. I mean, there's a lot of good pluses that come out of like traveling.
Oh, 100%.
Absolutely.
Traveling abroad gives you such a better perspective on culture, life, and problem solving, right? Like we always
Everything.
talk about that, like,
Yeah.
because there's no perfect.
Something goes wrong here.
No-
you're
no
like, how did it go
trip,
wrong?
right.
And
There's
you
always
freak out.
Right.
Something has to happen wrong,
Right.
no matter what.
Right.
Yeah, I mean,
I feel
there's
like
rarely.
there's no safety net.
Yeah.
And also just
Figure it out.
experience other people's cultures. Like that's a big thing for me also. And realizing like, this is not the only way to think.
Yeah.
There's other ways you could think, and it opens your mind to other things. It's awesome.
Happy people can be with so little too.
Yeah, I love that part. Yeah.
Like-
Simplifying.
How many boards
Yeah.
did you bring?
1. Are you kidding me? Fucking 2. Boards.
Board from 1 to 10 foot, one board.
Praying.
You never know.
Yeah, praying I wouldn't buckle it or break it or anything.
Did you each have a board?
Yeah, he had a board at that point. I had a board. I had a Hamish, Graham Hamish.
Graham?
Yeah. And funny enough, he shaped my board later when Poncho and I went to Europe together. He ended up shaping a couple of my boards. It was a full circle situation, and he's
that
an interesting
thruster
guy.
and
Yeah. At that point, it was all thruster.
Custom airspray.
Yeah.
Logos
Was it a
in the right
rip curl
spot.
hinge?
No, just straight Hamish.
Okay.
Like Burning Spears, I think it was.
Okay.
That's what it was actually.
Yeah.
And that was like my go-to, like, made sure it was like sparkling. It's like getting your first car or something.
Yeah.
Just make sure
So
it
your
was
Goofy Foot, what
Yeah.
Goofy Foot airspray, professional airspray did you get?
I actually my first one was like a Rasta. It was like a full Rasta airbrush thing. Yeah, I kind of was like into that. It was pretty cool.
It's still in style.
Yeah.
It'll never go out.
Yeah, no, classic.
camouflage and Rasta never goes
Yeah,
out.
yeah, exactly.
But when you get like, we talk about those first boards, especially custom. I mean, you're looking at every mag of every surfer, and you're just like, oh my god, look at his spray, and look at those logos, and look at I'm gonna do the Potter like kind of zigzag like neon.
Yeah.
There's a lot of good
So
sprays.
you didn't do any amateurs?
No,
contests
never got into it. The only thing I ever did one time was I think it was called King of the Peak, and it was like a skins event, and I won a couple skins, and that was it. I never really got into it. It wasn't my bag. I just never really wanted to. I never desire.
Yeah.
Just
Did
traveling.
you desire to get sponsored though?
Yeah, actually I did because I wanted some free swag, and it was expensive, like wetsuits and board bags and stuff like that. But I remember my first sponsor was a Track Top. Boo,
Nice.
Phil Boo Stubbs. The guy was so damn nice to me. It was
Did the
amazing.
rep?
A rep or
He was more than just a rep. No, he was either part owner or something. I forget what it was, but
Phil?
Boo Stubbs. He was the man, the coolest guy. Even to today, like we still talk social media and.
What a trip.
Yeah, he's just a sweetheart of a guy. Never
we know the
his-
guys that started it.
Oh, he's a legend.
Yeah.
This guy, I don't know about the guys who started it, but this guy was the nicest dude at the time. I was a nobody, kid, and he's just helped me out.
That's
Just traction pads and board socks, and it's funny, I still have some of the board socks lingering around somewhere in my warehouse, and I just kept them for just memorabilia. Yeah.
Well, there's those milestones of like catching away first board and first sponsor.
Yeah.
Like that's like I made it. You know, like
Yeah.
I'm one up in all my bros.
Oh yeah, it was cool. I mean, honestly, like I just wanted to surf. That's all I really cared. That's why everyone, like a lot of people look at surfing and go, oh, especially at that age, that's what people who smoke pot or do drugs, that's what they do. But honestly, it was the biggest savior because I didn't want to drink or smoke or do any kind of drugs, and I never got involved in any of that really because I wanted to wake up and go up coast and go surf and feel good, and so it kind of kept me out of a lot of trouble. Surfing was everything. I mean, it kind of still is. Like I built this surfing company, this private label company, out of just following my dreams of just traveling the world and going surfing. So
kind of here.
Yeah.
How do we get in the water?
Yeah. How
do you mix business with pleasure?
Yeah.
So
dumb luck.
Speaking of first sponsors, Poncho, like what do you remember? Like your first contest win, or like
doing well enough?
Do you have to put a resume together?
Well, actually, I think it was but my first sponsor was Sunset Beach Surf Shop.
Nice.
But my first, and she started helping me with entry fees. She actually kind of worked out this deal with Pat Rawson where Pat would provide a shaped blank, and then she would pay for the glass job.
Wow.
For the groms, for the neighborhood groms who couldn't afford a surfboard. And then so through that,
Carrie Gallagher.
Okay, Sunset Beach Surf Shop.
Yeah.
And then the first contest that I remember, actually, I don't know if I won it, but Mike Latronic, who was a sponsored professional surfer at the time.
Tron.
Yeah.
Tron.
He brought down a bunch of swag from Billabong. Randy Rarick actually brought all the kids together that would pick up trash at the contest, and he put on the first ever Shores Classic, and it was just the neighborhood kids.
How cool.
That weren't like competing on the amateur circuit. At that point, there was already the amateur, like HSF, I think was, circuit, and but this was just more of like a Menehune style event, neighborhood event. And so I surfed in that. We were all stoked. All the kids were excited to get all these swag bags and gear. And then Mike Latronic was like, "Hey, I'm gonna call the guys at Billabong, but if you're not sponsored by anybody, would you be interested?" And I was like, "Absolutely."
How old are you?
I think it was like 13,
and somebody like him, he was
Rick
local.
Kane. He was Rick Kane. Actually.
He was Rick Kane.
He wasn't Rick Kane yet.
Not yet.
Point, but
He's just about to be though.
Rick Kane,
14, 15, about that.
But Mike Latronic,
yeah,
he's in the Billabong videos. He's a fucking
He's
North
stud.
Shore,
for sure.
up and coming pro.
Everybody knows who he is.
Yeah, for him to tell you, hey, Billabong might pick you up.
Yeah, it was very exciting. I was like,
did you tell your friends like, holy shit?
I'm sure I did. I'm sure I ran around telling everybody.
Yeah, imagine that. Like, dude, fucking Mike Latronic thinks I'm fucking ripping. What?
Good.
What? Did Mike Latronic talk to you? No.
Yeah, he talked to me last week.
He talked to me actually, but to advertise in his magazine. He talked to me a few times.
So you.
So yeah, he ended up getting me sponsored, and they put me on this, like, I think it was twice a year. I got a little box with a couple pairs of trunks, a couple T-shirts, some stickers, and then that kind of motivated me a bit. Like, okay, now I've got this.
So how monumental is it when you get that box, and you're fucking psyched on the clothes.
Oh, it's Christmas.
Then
it's your birthday.
Yeah.
You get the sticker that is pretty much a team sticker, right?
Yeah.
And then you go through the ritual of stickering up your first board with Billabong sponsor.
All the legends are on the team.
Yeah, like a big deal.
Like how gnarly of a booster ego that is.
Yeah.
Ego booster that is. Like,
and big shoes to fill too, like you're like, man, I better fucking step it up. It's a good motivator.
It was.
You're like, I don't want to fuck this up.
No
I
bubbles.
want to put this on, like.
I want to know how many air bubbles were in there.
A lot.
And I know you're a perfectionist.
It looked like a phaser.
You get the little credit card out and just try to get those things out. Look at that face.
Yeah, so that definitely motivated me. I think, made me realize like, hey,
Did you
I
have,
was kind of
did you have to wait long or was it?
Yeah,
like,
it was. I remember it being like a long period of time. I don't know exactly how many
Couple
months.
from the time that
it was
he
like a couple months.
from the
And
time that he told you to win it finally, dude. How like how frustrating and how eager beaver you are. Like,
Yeah, right. It's not happening.
what is
It's
he
not
gonna call me?
happening.
What is he gonna call me?
Yeah.
Mom, did we get a phone call? Did somebody send us a letter?
yeah.
Yeah.
Like, you know
And
what I mean?
I think it actually. I went to the shop to get the box. It was like delivered to me.
Even better.
The Sons of
Yeah.
Big Surf shop.
That's cool.
And then I was like, what? I can't believe I got.
Not
two
only
pairs
you,
of
but
shorts.
Yeah.
what a relief for your mom too. Like not
Yeah.
even like how much that's gonna save like your parent.
Yeah.
You know, like
That's true.
Where'd you
Like,
get that
yeah.
box, Poncho? Mom,
my parents were tripping. Wait, you're getting all this stuff, and I'm like,
I ride for
Just
Billabong,
do it.
Mom.
Yeah.
What does that mean? I get free clothes and stickers. Like, that's huge.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah,
amazing.
how big of a, oh my gosh.
I-
You go the next
I
day,
hope the kids today
school,
get that same
right?
feeling.
You're wearing
I
your,
think
your
they
Christmas
do. I
new
don't think
How
that
could they?
fades.
Billabong
Yeah,
shirt.
yeah,
You're
yeah,
just
I don't
like,
think that
what's up,
fades.
bros?
Except
Hey,
the-
Ross,
except
you
the
ready for
managers and
Billabong?
the
Me
parents.
too!
Yeah, they're like,
But even if you do, he's still a good dress.
Actually, I
you know?
don't
like
know
just
if Ross-
now, you
Ross
guys
and I
get. I
were-
was like, damn, I need
I think
sunscreen.
Ross got on
still.
Billabong a little bit later, but Ross and I started surfing together not long after he moved to Hawaii. We started surfing up at Turtle Bay, and then they moved down kind of near Papailoa, and yeah, it was just all these neighborhood kids that just kept following their passion.
So you got on
Surfing.
Billabong before Ross.
Pretty sure, yeah.
Ross lied to us.
I think so.
I think Dorian got
He probably,
Ross on,
he
or
was
vice
probably
versa.
more officially on the team.
Yeah.
I was like the shop kid, But yeah, that motivated me to start pushing myself more in contests, and I started, going to the events at Sandy Beach and Makaha and all over, and yeah, it kind of lit the fire.
Yeah. So you have a very unique style. You always have. Who kind of was your influences?
I think probably my biggest influences, I always appreciated how much power and commitment that Johnny Boy Gomes, the way he surfed. It seemed like he just wanted to destroy every section.
yes.
But I was so fortunate to be on the North Shore and
See everybody.
ride my bike down to Rockies and watch like Potts just destroy a wave, and then go to Pipe, like, I wonder what Pipe's doing. Go down there and Ronnie Burns is like airdropping into the barrel, and it was just like to be able to see all of these guys surf and their different styles and the way they would approach riding waves, and it definitely had an influence on me.
Did you mature like early? Were you big like you hit puberty like as
No,
a
I
big
was
kid, or
pretty,
you?
I was pretty like lean, and I had a growth spurt at about, I think 18, 19. I grew, several inches, and then started filling out, by 25, 22, 25, I started to put on more weight, and
Yeah, because that has a big impact on like your development in surfing. Some kids like
The growth spurts.
kind of that awkward like adolescent age. Kind of like makes or breaks sometimes a kid because it's such a like a crucial time. 13 to 16, and then how that
That transition.
if you kind of if it comes in small waves, then you're okay. But those that like drastically like
What board were you
change,
surfing around?
surfers in general are
Well, everything changes, your boards and all that, so it's hard
around
to adjust.
15, Jeff Bushman had moved to the North Shore, and he and Karen connected, and they kind of worked out the same deal where she was helping me with the glass jobs, he was providing the shape blanks.
Dang.
And that, the fact that I actually had, one, sometimes two boards, and I wasn't really like charging big waves yet, but that was probably around 15. But at that point, I was doing a lot of different stuff. Like I got really into playing soccer. I played on the golf team. Kind of was like
Doing a bunch of
different sports, and I was enjoying competing, but we didn't have the money for me to constantly be going, paying entry fees and going across the island, and so I kind of stopped doing competition from around like 15, 16, and then
It's crazy because that's when people get serious about it,
yeah.
right? Like
yeah, that's
for the
when
most part, that's when you're like, oh, I'm gonna
USA
fucking focus in.
championships and all that kind of stuff. And yeah, so like fast forward, I think right after high school, I had registered for community college, and I decided to take 6 months off, save money, and I was just working and surfing, and I had actually I put a board at Sunset Beach Surf Shop for sale, and my buddy Orion and I had just surfed Rocky Point, and we were coming back, and I was like, hey, my board sold, I need to stop and grab that money from the shop. So we stopped, grabbed the money, and then he lived up at Backyards, and we were on our way to his house, and it was the Hard Rock World Cup of Surfing at Sunset was running, and he was like, oh, you want to pull in and watch a couple of heats? I was like, yeah, sure. So we pulled in, and it was like, I think it was because the waves were smaller, it was like 3 to 4 foot Sunset Point, it wasn't Sunset proper. So a lot of the Hawaiian guys were like, oh, it's not big enough. They were pulling out. Guys that wanted to surf real Sunset.
Wow.
And I remember we were sitting on the pilings there watching, and then the beach announcer came on and was like, oh, you know, we've got openings. There's, if anyone want a beach enter, you can enter. You know, beach enter right now.
No way that happens now anymore.
Yeah. No, it was like
those days
an alternate list, 100 people long.
Yeah.
He starts nudging me. He's like, you should enter. You got the money. I'm like, yeah, dude, I need this for my rent. There's no way I can't do that. And he's like, just do it. And I was like, okay. And I just walked over.
And you had a board because you just sold one, but you had one.
I had my board that I just surfed Rockies on, and I had the money that I needed for rent. But I was like, here we go.
Let it ride.
Betting on myself, baby.
So I
love it.
You know, put the entry fee down, and
how
I
much?
ended up making I think it was $150 entry fee. And
Which is huge
yeah.
when you're a Grom.
And
Fuck
that was my rent. I was paying
big.
$150 a month in rent. And then, you know, I think I made it through like 5 or 6 rounds of the event and made it all the way to the round. I think it was a round before the quarters, and ended up making like $1,900.
Damn!
And I was like,
You triple dipped.
I made rent.
We're going to town.
1,000%. 1,000% profit.
awesome.
Do you remember taking down some names from like the mag, like people you knew?
Yeah, you know, I don't remember all of the heats. It's kind of almost like a blur. Like I just remember, you know, advancing, and then, you know,
So you turned pro.
It got big, and you know, then it was like proper sunset. And I was
Yeah.
borrowing boards.
That's awesome.
I remember. I think I might have borrowed a board from Jason Megalenis, or it might have even been his dad Sino that loaned me a board because I didn't have a board over. I don't think I had a board over 6'6", and it got like, you know, 8 to 10 feet.
Damn.
And then yeah, so that just kind of, you know, that experience was like, I can't believe you can make money from surfing. That's out of
You
control.
turned pro because you took the money.
Yeah, I took the money.
Yeah.
And then it just.
But you're how old were you? You said.
I was 18.
Okay.
No, I was 18. I just turned 18, and yeah. So then from that point, I just went, you know, I'm gonna push myself and see how good I can get at surfing. I enjoy this.
So you had no intention of ever turning pro?
No, at that point, my pathway was going to be community college, and I was looking at, you know, I want to be a fireman. That seems like a good career.
Yeah.
You know, it's work 10 days a month, plenty of time to surf. So I you know, kind of saw what the pathway was to get there through community college, fire science courses, and doing all that. And but this, all of a sudden, that door opened. So I'm surfing as much as I can.
An incredible
It's a cool journey.
paradigm shift.
Yeah.
That's a lot of money too. Like,
Yeah.
you know. Like,
Hell yeah.
Yeah. I never had.
And you're like, wait, how many of these
Like-
events? If I do this well, on like 10 events, like fuck yeah.
So
You know, at that point, I didn't even really. All I
Put
could
it
think
together.
about was, I didn't put it together.
Yeah.
I was like, I can't believe that you get paid to surf.
yeah.
And then I was like,
Now,
okay, I'm gonna push myself. And then
were you living with your mom?
no,
still?
I was living
Okay.
in a studio apartment on Sunset Point. It was Conan and Shane were sleeping in the closet, and then my other 2 buddies and I I had a bed out on the like screened-in lanai, and we were just sharing. You know, it was like $150 a month just so we could surf our brains out.
Yeah.
I was working.
And
at
these
really
guys were aspiring pros.
they were already sponsored and like.
Yeah.
I don't know if they were getting paid. They probably weren't
For
paid
sure.
at that point.
Yeah. I think those
And,
guys.
But my other 2 buddies, Mike and Matt DeMello, they we're working at Rosie's, and they were like, oh, you should, go apply at Rosie's. And so I got a job there.
Is that a restaurant?
Yeah, it was a Mexican restaurant in Haleiwa. So I worked there at nights, and then during the summertime I worked there, and then just construction cleanup during the daytime.
So
and
you were on your own at age 17,
I was on
18?
my own at 17.
Yeah.
My senior year of high school, actually, I slept on my surfboard shapers. At that time, it was my
So rad.
Interesting. Yeah.
to
I've
put
heard.
the pieces together, but it was my mom's ex-husband who he lived right across from Foodland. I lived on his couch and finished my senior year of high school and worked for another friend's dad. So I had got all my credits. I had like work release. So I would get out of school, work, and then he was so cool. Like we'd show up to work. He was building a new house right at Gas Chambers, and if the waves were firing, he'd like, we'd get there and he'd be like, okay boys, it was me and my friend Jesse. Okay boys, this is the plan for the day. First you got to go out and get a couple waves, and then when you come in, dig that hole.
Because there's no way you'd be focused if you didn't have a couple.
No way.
He knew,
Yeah.
go get it out of your system, go get a couple, and then
Yeah.
and come put your head down and fucking dig.
So we did that, that summer, and then graduated, and that happened in that same year, and then I can't remember if it was in the fall.
We're still sponsored by Billabong and stuff. Like
Yeah,
it
it was just
clothes,
but
and
it was just
flow.
like two boxes of clothes a year. It was like I think
Riding
4 to
Bushmans.
6 items. Riding Jeff Bushman boards through the surf shop, and then at that point I think Karen. It was like I was too old already. She was helping the next generation, and I wasn't about to ask for any help there. But Jeff started flowing me boards, and
because you were getting shots in the mags and stuff at that age, right?
that's right around the time that happened. It was
Okay.
right after that contest season. I think in the spring.
Do you remember your first photo in the mag?
Yeah. I
What was
remember. It was actually an extra. Remember the extras?
Yeah.
So I was bottom turning on a wave and off the wall, and I kind of had my hand on the bottom, dragging on the water, and right next to my hand was a turtle.
no way.
And it was like turning
I
turtle.
gotta find that photo.
And,
You have it?
I don't. I probably do somewhere in a box. But
So it wasn't like that. It wasn't like some crazy
Turn or anything
turn.
like
It was
that.
like, but cool kind of
Do
silhouette.
you remember the back page extra?
I do.
Yeah.
It was all like funny, weird, not necessarily an action shot, but it was an interesting shot.
Interesting.
Yeah.
So that was my first photo in the magazine, and then at the end of the winter, I think it was Surfer Magazine ran this article, and it was like a feature on. It was something about like next generation, and it was up and comers on the North Shore.
Yeah.
It was like, all the Ross and Shane and all these guys, and then I had a shot in there, and it, and that kind of again motivated me to keep pushing myself. And then I got a call from Billabong, Australia. I actually think they called Jeff Bushman, and they were like, hey, can you get in touch with Poncho? We would love to send him on a trip. And next thing I knew, I was going to Fiji with Jack McCoy and Brendan Margison and
For Sick Joy.
I think it was Sick Joy. I'm pretty sure it was. We got kind of skunked.
Yeah.
So that trip, I don't even think that
So
we ever made it.
the Australian guy hit Jeff.
Yeah. It was Mick Lowe, Brendan Margison, and myself went to
And you're not like one of their like main team riders.
Yeah,
you're not
I
getting
didn't-
like you're not making
Because
money.
Ross and Shane were
I
riding
literally
for him.
flew there with $5 in my
That's
wallet.
crazy.
I had no money whatsoever. I was like, I don't even know why I'm going.
Yeah.
I don't even have enough money to do anything, and I don't even know what to expect.
Yeah.
I'm just like, I flew by myself from Hawaii, landed, and then the taxi picks you up and takes you to get on the island. And they're like, oh, it's going to be this much money, and I'm like, huh?
No one told me.
I don't have any money.
Yeah.
and then so they kind of floated me, and then Jack took care of it once we got out there, and then we kind of got skunked for waves, but we had one good day of surf, and then went back thinking, kind of a bummer, like I didn't really get the opportunity to
Shine.
push myself, and
Yeah.
who knows, like he barely shot any footage or anything.
You had to go. Like you're getting
Yeah.
called,
Oh,
like,
yeah.
you know, like
Yeah,
you
yeah.
knew, like Billabong's movies, like they put out a fucking incredible movie
Yeah,
every
yeah.
year, and it's
I
the
think I
best of the
watched-
best. So it's like just to have that invite is like.
I think I watched, what was the first one? Was it Surfing the Summer?
Surfing the Summer.
I think I watched
Filthy
that probably.
Habit. Yeah.
Surfing the
Thousands
Summer, Filthy
of
Habits.
Habits.
Probably watched 10,000.
Thousands.
Those
Jason
Thousands.
Buttonshaw.
Yeah.
Jason Buttonshaw.
That,
Man.
that one segment of Aki, I think it's maybe at G-Land, where he's just ripping or maybe Aki's left.
Oh,
He's
Clods.
Reunion Island.
Yeah, Clods. Yeah, it was.
Reunion
gosh,
Island one?
He was there
That was
too at
really
one
He's
point.
there too, yeah.
Yeah, but those
Yeah,
were,
it was
you know,
so iconic,
so
those
memorable.
videos.
Filthy
Yeah.
Habits, Pump.
That's what we lived on.
Yeah,
In the
yeah,
Wind.
Like
oh my
those
God,
videos.
Yeah, in the
yeah.
wind.
And
Green
Jack,
Wine.
no one did it better than Jack.
Yeah.
Jack McQuaid was the man.
Yeah, so that, you know, I went on that trip, and then a couple months later they called again and said, hey, we would love for you to come to Australia. We're going to pair you up with Sonny Garcia. We have the Billabong event that we're running at Kira, and, you know, we'll pay for your entry.
You must have been surfing
Yeah.
well enough for them for you to keep popping up in their minds. You know what I mean?
You know,
Because not to downgrade your surfing, because I know you fucking rip, but they had Shane.
yeah,
They had Conan probably rode for
I
Billabong
think
too,
he did
right?
ride for them at the time. The Malloy brothers.
And Ross. Like there's
Yeah,
a lot.
their roster was deep.
Yeah,
the
I mean,
roster
that
was
very-
deep, and to keep calling you,
Yeah.
you know what I mean?
For some reason, it was, you know, I got this big push from Australia.
Yeah.
Like it was, you know, it wasn't coming from Billabong USA. It was
Yeah.
Billabong Australia was, you know, kept calling and saying, hey,
That's kind of
does he want to
rad.
go on another trip? And then
Yeah.
so I went to Australia, and I was there for about, I think, 2.5, 3 weeks. And we were going to go with Jack McCoy, Sonny, Jack, and Aki, and I were going to go to West Oz. And then the forecast just was terrible. And so they were like, oh, we're going to pull the plug on that, you know. And Sonny was like, you know, he won the event. He's like, I kind of want to go home. And they were like, well, we need to do a trip for this film. Where do you want to go? And I had been just like, I had gone to Tahiti actually with our church. And I was telling Sonny, like, oh, I went to Tahiti and, you know, I surfed this couple amazing waves. Waves there are incredible. And I think that might have stuck in his mind. And he goes, what about Tahiti? Like I somehow I ended up in the meeting with the marketing guy with Sonny. And he goes, and I was just kind of, you know, off to the side. I was like, I'm not part of this. This
Yeah.
is their deal. They're trying to figure something out. And he goes, how about Tahiti? And he goes, okay, great, let's do it. You know, what about these dates? And he goes, oh, and I want you to bring Poncho. And I was like, what? Sounds good. So yeah, and then we went home, and I think it was like within a month, maybe, I was on another trip going to Tahiti.
Now, did you sign a contract with them, or
At that point, I had nothing. No, I wasn't getting.
you're still working at
I was still
Rosie's
working at
or?
Rosie's.
Because that's
you know,
crazy.
awesome.
You would think like, hey, we're investing all of you, you know, all this time and energy flying you around. You'd
And you're
think there
humble.
would been like, hey, like we're gonna give you, you know, some sort of salary,
Yeah.
some sort of travel
Yeah.
budget, some sort of.
And you're
like,
too humble to go, hey, why aren't you paying me?
Yeah, I think at that point, like, you know, I really didn't have any, you know,
Results
real
or-
profile to go off of. Like, I'd never won an amateur title. I'd won, you know, HSF contests and things like that, but it wasn't something where I really, you know, really knew how to negotiate that for
Yeah.
myself. I just knew that I loved surfing, and that I enjoyed the rush of trying to elevate my surfing. And, you know, I didn't really look at anybody else like, oh, I want to compete against and beat this person. I was more like, my mindset was always the rush of trying to analyze how to do that turn better or take off deeper, or, you know, that just like really fueled my fire. I loved it. I loved the
'Cause-
process.
Thinking back to what happened is you won that contest and won that money, right? And it changed your mind about, not change your mind, but oh, maybe I can do this, right?
Mhm.
You make money from surfing,
Yep.
and you get invited to these trips, but you're not on pay. You have to make your own way.
Yep.
You still have to pay rent, and you know, because when you leave for a couple weeks.
Yeah, it
You
was
know?
tough. Like I remember, you know, it was financially, it was really hard. You know, I was kind of struggling paying my rent. Like I said, luckily my rent was cheap because I was splitting it with a group of guys at that point, and then, you know, working at night at the restaurant, and you know, but you know, I look back and I wouldn't have it any other way. It
Yeah,
was, you know,
yeah.
it was a time in my life where I felt like, you know, I was being sort of steered in this direction, and you know, it made me, I think, push myself even harder. You know, I saw that some of my other friends were actually getting paid to surf.
Yeah.
And I was like, wow, that'd be amazing to be able to pay rent, and then I could surf more.
Yeah.
You know, and I wouldn't have to worry about, you know, working at night and you know, all that. And so it was motivating, but at the same time, I never really, at that point, I never really thought like of it in the sense of having a career. It was just something that I thought, oh, I'll be able to, if I could do this for a little while, and these, you know, all of a sudden these travel experiences really blew my mind. That was I think the biggest turning point was, you know, I never in my wildest dreams thought that I would end up surfing Cloudbreak, or, you know, or I'd be at Kira, or, you know, on a trip in Tahiti with Sonny Garcia and Aki.
Yeah.
That just, you know, really blew my mind. I was so grateful to be there that I never thought about, like, oh,
Yeah.
maybe I should ask them to help me,
So,
you know, help me get there financially. I mean, they were paying for my ticket, and they were paying, once I was there, like everything was
Comp.
paid for.
yeah.
But I still had brand. I still had.
Yeah, that's what I
I
mean.
didn't have a car.
You're like,
You know?
killer, I get to go on the surf trip, but what do I come
I was always
home
like,
to?
oh shit, I gotta pay rent when I get back.
Yeah.
Right?
How am I gonna pull that off? I gotta
Yeah.
rub 2 wet sticks and make this happen.
Gotta start from ground zero again. Every
Du-
time you come
double
back from the
shifts at
trip.
Rosie's.
Yep, that's why I was doing, you know, Rosie's and construction cleanup, and I was doing whatever I could. I ended up moving over to the chart house, working the salad bar there, and that was another pivotal moment for me. Was I actually was starting to get, like, you know, moderate competitive results, making quarterfinals,
Getting more shots in the
making
mag.
SAG, getting more shots. in
Getting
the
parts
magazine.
in, not parts of movies, but getting waves in movies.
Yeah.
Yeah.
and
Building a name for yourself.
and then all of a sudden it was like, oh, you know, here we want to give you a photo incentive, and, you know, here's a $500 a month, you know, to put you,
Sick.
sign you on for the year. And each little milestone like that, I think, motivated me even more. I felt like it took the financial pressure off, you know, where I could, you know, just I felt
H2O sponsored.
just felt that support, you know,
Yeah.
from them, and it motivated me, you know, to keep pushing myself, and then then that led into, I think my what I consider like my first big break was I earned a spot in the Pipeline Masters trials,
Wow.
and I won the trials that year, in, you know, really good pipe, and it was a really lackluster year overall. The whole North Shore season wasn't very good for any of the contests, but for some reason the trials was pumping, and we got great waves. I won the trials, made it in the main event. They finished the event. I think Kelly won it at Teahupoo in like windblown 3 to 4 foot surf, and I lost to Kelly there. But
In the final or
no, it
previous?
was probably like first or second round. It was early, you know, and then but that was the end of the year, end of my contract with Billabong, and I was like, hey, you know, like I was hearing, I remember writing this long proposal, handwriting this long proposal to the team manager, and you know, kind of outlining all my goals, what I wanted to do, and you know, that I wanted to earn this amount of compensation just so I could cover my rent, and then that would allow me to enter contests, and you know, and then if there was a trip involved, that I could actually like leave without having to worry about you know, bills and whatnot.
Yeah.
And
Can't travel if you're working.
yeah, and then I remember, I think it was my aunt who was like, oh, you know, you really need stability. She was visiting me at the time, and she's like, you need stability. You should try to see if you can get a 2-year contract. That way, you know, you really can outline your goals. You know, usually 1 year is so short. So I remember like, oh, you know, maybe I can get 2 years to really like go for it. And they were like, no, we only do 1-year contracts. You know, that's not going to happen.
Wow.
And I was like, okay. And then Jeff Bushman called me and said, hey, I just got a call from Rip Curl in Australia, and they're
Australia.
yeah,
Yeah,
Back to Australia.
and they were like, hey, you know, they want to see what your deal is with Billabong, and if you'd be interested in joining Tom Curran on the search. And
Damn.
I was like, yeah, I kind of would like to do that.
So they got wind
And-
like Billabong's taking you to like kind of
I think
Billabong
they
does their
started to
own
see-
similar kind of search with their movies.
Yeah.
Like
I think they may have seen that, you know, through the films, and at that point, you know, Brendan Margison was really a big part of those films.
Yeah.
And they might have thought, hey, that's kind of two guys that are a lot
Power.
alike, similar, more free surfers, not really contest surfers.
Yeah.
And so they ended up presenting me with a 3-year contract and said, hey, we don't care if you do contests. You can do them if you want,
Yeah.
but we'll create a little contest budget for you, photo incentive, and then provide you with a little salary. And I was like over the moon because I knew that that would pay my
music
rent.
to your ears,
That
right
would
there.
pay my rent,
Yeah.
and I would have enough money to enter the contests that I wanted to enter because I still had competitive aspirations, but I didn't really want to go out and do the tour. I really just wanted to do the Triple Crown.
Yeah.
I kind of saw that as my, hey, this is where I grew up watching my favorite surfers, and it was, to me, it was like something that was more relatable. I didn't really have, competitive success outside of Hawaii at that point. So
Yeah.
You're
So
getting the best of both worlds.
But
travel and surfing exotic, beautiful places and getting paid.
yeah, it was
Like you don't have to stress on
Yeah.
results.
yeah.
And you had the benefit of being, North Shore local, where you didn't have to be in the top 100 to get into the Triple Crown. Like you guys had,
Yeah.
like guaranteed slots.
Yeah, back then there was we actually had a circuit called the HPAC,
Yep.
and the guy who also ran the amateur circuit ran the pro-am circuit. And there was you would have guys like Larry Rios,
Oh yeah.
Johnny
Stacked.
Boy Gomes, like stacked heats
Yeah.
with grown ass men, and Davey Boy Gonzalez, and just the list went on and on of guys that that surfed the HPAC tour, and the goal was if you made like the top 4, then you could get a second round seat in the main event in the Triple Crown events.
Fucking huge.
So that was something that I was like, wow,
Already in the money.
already in the money.
Yeah.
So I'm like, if I can somehow do well on this circuit, then I can get into the events, into the money, and and sort of build the points. And so that's kind of how I started like figuring out the system of my way into the Triple Crown, and then eventually that led to like, okay, well, the Triple Crown, enough points if I've got seeds in the 2 top rated events at Haleiwa and Sunset,
Yeah.
and then I get in the pipe trials, that'll allow me to kind of make the next step and the next step. So.
Yeah. And Abe, you started
Definitely.
traveling or moved like on the road early too. 17,
Yeah, so
18?
17 I moved to the Big Island of Hawaii.
And what led you to the Big Island?
My best friend Adam Hurwitz had he was attending college out there, so I was like, I was saving some money at the time, and then decided, okay, my plan was to move to Costa Rica. Actually, that was kind of my thing, and
Already been there and fell in love?
yeah, I was like stoked on it. That was our go-to, surf trip for us as Groms. So I just kind of was like, okay, this is familiar. The waves are really good. We ended up kind of learning different zones and different spots there, and kind of started getting it dialed. And I said, I could do this for a couple years, maybe go over there. But I had no major plans. I was just kind of cruising.
What,
And,
were you smart in school?
Nah, not really. My dad helped me out with all that extra credit BS that I did, to be honest with you. I just couldn't stand being in a controlled environment such as school, and I just felt like there was more out there in the world. And again, going back to living in Florida, like the waves at that point, I was surfing on a pretty good level, like started getting better and better, and I just knew like I just wanted to travel. And I like Florida, the day-to-day grind was like there wasn't waves all the time.
Yeah.
And we were wake surfing a lot and playing basketball and having fun, but I just was like, okay, well, there's something out there for me that is bigger than all this. And then when Adam called the house one day from Hawaii, he's like, hey, what's going on? And we were shooting the shit. He was like, you should just come out here, like, why are you gonna go to Costa? Like, we've been doing that for years already. It's kind of like, this is like where it's at. I was like, okay, maybe I'll give it a shot. I just switched plans. And I
Because
just,
like,
What did your,
there's good waves on the Big Island. There's good waves on all, all the islands, but it's not like most people would.
What did your dad say when you said?
oh, once again, it goes back to them just kind of blindly trusting me, I guess, in a way. I didn't really think about it. I'm not really a big overthinker. I just kind of like
Sounds like a fun
feel
idea.
a lot of what's that? Yeah.
Sounds like a good idea.
Yeah,
Just
just like I
do
just
it.
why I
I
work with
can't do
my
that
heart
now.
a lot. It just sort of seemed like a good thing to do. It's like, and I didn't know that much about Hawaii besides the video. So North Shore of Oahu, Big Island, Kauai, Maui. It's like I didn't really analyze it that much. He was like, "Hey, come out here." All right, cool. I'll do that. So hey, mom, dad.
Were you working and saving money, or
Yeah, a little bit here and there. Yeah, I was working at my dad's at the time. My dad opened electronic stores. That's kind of what he, how he made his living. At the beginning, like when we were at Grom's, he would work for other people, and I'd watch him take the bus to work, and my mom would have the car to take us to school and all that. So that was the whole thing with my father. I watched him sort of build his little sort of like empire in a way. And I always was real mindful of that, watching this guy just come home late and working really hard. And I just watched it, and I paid attention to it. I was even as a little kid, like a 10-year-old kid. And as my dad started saving money, his dream was to open up his own electronics store. And when he finally did that, his natural progression was just to open up another one and a third and all that. So that was the thing when I was a kid. I was surrounded by business-minded, men.
Yeah.
So it was really cool. And my mom was a great, house mom, and she kept him in line and was a saver.
What was the business called?
World Electronics, and then the other one, I don't really remember the name right now, but it might come back to me. But the funny thing is I wasn't the greatest kid growing up. I was a little punky and beat up my brothers and get into fights. So the weekends would come around, and my mom would always tell my dad, hey, I'm not watching all 3 kids this weekend. You're taking Abe to the store with you. And so Saturday morning, dawn patrol, basically, my father would drive the car and go over to, Miami Beach, which was a pretty solid drive at the time where we lived, from Eastern Shores, Sunny Isles. Over was like, a good 40 minutes. But I remember those drives all the time. My dad would be jamming like, the Beatles and Jimi Hendrix and all these great, bands. And I would just be sitting in the car thinking it was the shittiest thing because I couldn't play with my friends that day or whatever. But once we finally got to the store, it was like my little like wonderland, because my dad had all the cool Ray-Bans and all the video games, and it was all electronics, And then eventually I started liking it quite a bit, and then watched and studied all these killer salesmen. My dad's salesmen like quickly became my heroes. It was the coolest thing. And
what a trip, huh?
Yeah, it was a real interesting.
Because you have to sell.
Oh yeah.
Electronics.
Yeah.
Like you have to have knowledge, product knowledge.
Yeah.
Yeah, you gotta know your
right.
Yeah, you gotta know your gadgets.
It was awesome though, but I kind of started off as a grunt, running, getting them lunches. It was a real gig. It was pretty cool. It was
clean
like,
out the cases, polish the countertops.
Yeah, all of it. And then I never took it for granted though. I was always real prideful of what my dad had accomplished, and then my dad hired these sort of misfits almost. These kids that would come off the street, and my dad would just train them. And really take them in. These kids were basically like pretty much, on the cusp of being homeless, and just like saw potential in these 16, 18-year-old kids and 20-year-old kids, and they became like really good salesmen. And they would treat them like a father, because they didn't have fathers of their own, or broken families, or whatever it was. And then when they started like making money and buying cars, and they were the coolest guys to me, because they were getting the chicks, they had the Trans Ams, and it was just the coolest. I remember the Trans Ams, like the Pontiacs, like the one Burrell's had.
T-Bird,
was the coolest shit ever. The one that was in
Night Rider.
Snow, Smokey and the Bandit, man, it would just freak me out. The one guy would take me in, Alex Gilman would just take me and drives around the block and go and meet this chick down there. Hang on, I gotta go see this chick, and just come for a drive with me. And we'd go, and I'd be like, dude, look at this guy just making out with this hottie on the road. And I was like, at that point, I was like 15, 16. And they were just the coolest guys. So,
that's the aspiring,
Was it in Miami?
Yeah, that was in Miami. Yeah. That's like the heart of Miami, right across from the Delano.
Yeah.
My dad's stores. And then he took over the Harley Davidson store, and that was a big deal. That was like a 2-story thing, and that was like the Mecca. And it became like it was a full-on legit, my dad did it right,
For the listeners that haven't been to Miami,
right.
or I'm sure everyone in the world's heard of Miami, but it's in Florida.
Yeah.
And when you think Florida, you don't think Miami.
Right.
And when you go to Miami, it's like Mexico.
Wow. Yeah.
Like that.
It's
metropolitan.
Yeah.
It's a city.
Yeah.
It's a big city, but it's like Mexico.
Money, style,
Cuba.
everything.
Yeah.
Like
it's kind of like the American Riviera. It's kind of pretty rad, actually. But everything revolved around those stores, and the music and the smells and the people, and the Spanish music playing on the. So this is so nostalgic. You go down there now, and it's like you just feel that time, But I cut my teeth as a salesman in my dad's store. from the ground up. So for me, business is second nature, even just subliminally.
Yeah.
It was never like I never went to school for it or need to study. And my dad had this intricate system. It was called Money Talks, and the M was a 1, the O was a 2, and then when you pick up something, you knew how much we paid for it, and you knew to double that, whatever it was, right? So you pick up something that was like MON, you knew it was $123, you have to double that. So you have to work pretty quick. And as a 14, 15,
that's
16,
a good little like.
that was like
Money talks.
Yeah. Believe it, dude. It was so funny. And I just was like, 15, 16-year-old kid, and I'm selling to like these grown-ups with families, and we don't have this, but we have that, and it's just as good, and you need to roll a film with that in the case. And it was just, nobody was like scamming anybody.
Was it like a Radio Shack?
No, it was like a brand smart but smaller, basically. It was like all your electronics goods. And
So
not Radio Shack, not at all.
No, but like TVs, VCRs,
Yeah.
and like cameras and
and it was the best thing.
stereo systems.
Yeah. And then I got to the point to where in school they had a work release program, and again I couldn't stand school much. I really wasn't the greatest student, and I just couldn't really put up with it. But they had a work release program, so like at 1:30 I would take the bus and take it straight to my dad's store, and they actually let that go as like a work release. Like, okay, you don't have like, I wasn't working at like a coffee shop, but they allowed that. That was my dad's store. So that ended up really becoming my gig, in the beginning. And it was pretty rad. I started saving money, and once I started getting old enough and was like, okay, I want to go to Hawaii. I had a little bit of money, and I went to college for a hot minute, but it didn't really last. It was like the waves and all that was too distracting.
Yeah, we tried to go to Hawaii.
I ended up like
for school.
When I was 17, like I said, I did a bunch of extra credit work. Went over to the Big Island with my buddy Adam Hurwitz. He was living there already for a year, and stayed with him in the dorms. And then I enrolled in college and I took like carpentry because I remember Harrison Ford did it, and I just remember thinking it was the coolest thing, like, oh shit. and I just was like, I think I can do this, and then I started getting into like blueprint reading classes and
architect.
Yeah, it just wasn't really for me. It was too structured and kind of boring, and I was just like, But the cool thing about it was my buddy Adam Hurwitz, his parents, rest in peace, they would rent really big homes on the North Shore of Oahu during our vacations, like winter break or spring break or whatever. So I just remember like them, like we'd go to college and fly over from the Big Island to Oahu. We'd stay with them and just style out because they were pretty affluent, family. And
you stopped eating rice.
Stopped ramen. It was like we went from ramen to steak for that week or whatever. But we had a really good friend by the name of Love Hodel, and Love brought in.
Love.
Yeah, one day we were all just sitting around in the living room bullshitting, and then Love brought in Laka and Poncho, and that's the first time I ever met Poncho. I was 18 years old, and Poncho came in, and
Poncho's like, I want some. What are you guys serving up here? You guys are on vacation?
Hawaii tax.
I actually didn't know them at all. Like Love and Adam had met each other, I think, surfing at Kaiser's or something.
South Shore for
that's how
summers.
that connection happened. Was they met each other, and then Adam was like, "Hey, Love, I'm here on the North Shore."
Yeah.
So were you 18 then?
Yeah, 18. Yeah.
So I met Poncho. I was 18, and then for some reason, like I just out of everybody, Poncho and I were gravitating towards each other, and I was wanting to surf with him a lot. And then before you know, we just became super close, and that's how our friendship started. Was from there, just organically, and from surfing.
And how long did you stay on the Big Island?
I stayed on the Big Island for quite a bit because Adam ended up moving to the North Shore of Oahu and started going to school in Manoa. And I was like, I like the Big Island. I like how rootsy it is and all that. And I stayed out there for probably another 2 years. And then again, but I would go over to the North Shore because now Adam was there, and he rented a place right there at Off the Wall. Became really close with all these guys, and I would just fly over and be like, all right, waves are going to be good on the North Shore. I'm going to fly over and hang out with Adam for a while. And I remember one of the trips I landed in Honolulu, and then Adam picked me up, and he was with Poncho, and I had just bought the new surfing magazine, and Poncho was on the cover. And I remember the caption that said "barreled off the dial," and I couldn't be more proud of my buddy. He was like on the cover, and he was doing
first cover.
Yeah, it was pretty amazing. I just remember that day like it was yesterday. And then after that, it just kind of snowballed. We just became all tighter and closer, and it's just fun to see the.
It's got to be a trip, like you being from Florida. Yes, you get to live on the Big Island, but then you go to the North Shore, and then you meet these guys, and these guys are the young who's who, up and coming of the surf scene on the North Shore. Yeah. You know, like the world looks at the North Shore, especially more and more. You know, I think then
it was big then,
not as much,
right?
But like, you know, here's Poncho, Sullivan, and Love Hodel,
right?
And they're the who's who of the new school of Hawaiian surfing, North Shore surfing, and then you're friends with them now, and then you see them on the cover of magazines, like, shit, I know that guy,
right?
A kid from Florida,
right?
You know?
Right. So for me, it was more of like I was proud of my friend, because for me, I just never really was into like a hero worshiping kind of thing, so I never got caught up in that. Like, remember,
why do you look at me when you say that?
Actually, I was looking at Jay. I never really my favorite surfer was Tom Carroll and Aki, and I never had posters of them on my walls and all that. I never really got into it. Remember, my heroes were my dad's employees.
Yeah,
the blue collar dude. Those guys were, to me, the guys. So when I met these guys like Poncho and Love and all that, I think that's why we hit it off, because I didn't have that energy towards him of like, oh, he's the guy that's on the cover and surfing did it. It was like I treated him like anybody else, and I still do. Like we that's why I think it's kind of like, you know, I think that's why it evolved. This relationship has evolved for 30 years because of that. Like, he's just a brother to me, and I never ever put him on a pedestal of any sort, and I never will. It's just what it is, and everyone's just human. And just trying to get through life as best as they can, and they all have challenges, and it was just another guy.
Laura always tries to tell me, dude, I should be on a pedestal. And I'm like, fuck you, bro.
Well, dude, he's HB royalty, bro.
You know, you got 35 challenge. That's it. That's all you did, bro.
Yeah.
No,
you got one cover. Come on.
But when we were like, growing up, you're just meeting people, and if you're cool and respectful, and you're having like, you connect, and you're like. And we talk about people traveling all over the world. Like, you could fly to Australia, you meet some random out in the water, and they'd be like, "Oh, you're from California, Huntington Beach? Oh yeah. You have a place you can sleep on the couch. You got a room over here. Let's go eat it." You know, like that just happens organically. You know, within our like surf culture.
So you had no vision of what you were gonna do.
Absolutely not. I mean, when Adam moved from the Big Island to Oahu, I ended up living in a van. I had a van, and I lived in that, and you know, again, I never felt sorry for myself. I'd laugh myself to sleep. And
how long did you live in the van for?
About a year and change, and then
where would you take showers?
My buddies' places, and it was a really cool time. I would park it at there's a place called Bowls in Puhiki, and I would surf secrets and bowls all the time, and my friends would come and knock on my window and wake me up for dawn patrol. And
were you working?
Nah, not really. It was I was doing other stuff and to earn money, and
what
it wasn't. Growing a little bit of weed at the time, and but that was just a small little phase.
It was longer than 7 years ago, right? So.
No, look, man. Honestly, no, it wasn't. It was a long time ago.
Yeah.
But you know, if I had $5 to my name, it was like gonna be a good day. You know, it was cool. I just, you know, and I never really worried about it or felt a sense of urgency at all. It was just kind
of. It's good to have.
But you grew weed to make ends meet.
Yeah, at the time it was only a short window, maybe like a year of that.
To keep the dream alive. Stay in paradise.
It was where would you grow the weed though?
Well, the friend that I took a shower at his house all the time, he did it, and I just helped him out a little bit. I would trim and stuff like that, and it wasn't like selling it or anything or do anything crazy.
No, but you're
not selling it, but just taking money for
just trimming. I would trim.
Yeah, but I mean, that was hand in hand with the surf culture, and it still is in any culture.
Let's not be naive about it. It existed at the time, and you know, and that was a phase, and I haven't touched this stuff for 27 years, and it was just a small phase. But yeah, so that was the
We're not
deal.
judging, bro.
Yeah, I don't know. I feel a little judgment coming from the right side of this room.
Not even.
No, so
I love the Mary Jane.
So after that and going, okay, well, I'm kind of done with the Big Island, you know, and Adam was well settled there, and I'm gonna just move over to Oahu now.
Did you sell your van, or did you?
I sold the van. It was for $4,000 to a guy named Michael Holton. I was actually living with him. He was kind of like, this pretty nutty guy, and he was a really amazing surfer out at Pipeline. He was nuts. He was one of like the underground iconic dudes that ever your surfer kind of thing. Never got any recognition.
Because it's got to be expensive. Like, hey, I want to take this car to another island. Versus
I didn't do that. I sold it, and then I had a little bit of money, and then I knew Gordon Hansen on the North Shore. He was shaping a lot out of off of Hans Hedeman's property, and I stayed with him in Hans Hedeman's little kind of shack basically. So yeah, Hans Hedeman was a really, really good guy to me. He loaned me his car. I did some work around his house, and he was just the nicest guy in the world. Yeah,
legendary.
Guy was amazing.
Did he make you teach his students on this?
No, this is way before that.
He's still pro.
I mean, you're talking like 90, 93 now, probably.
I think he was like just coming off of his pro career.
Yeah, just the sweetest guy. Couldn't be any nicer. Didn't make me didn't have any rules basically. Just, hey, here's a car, have fun, enjoy. If you need anything, let me know. Come up to the house anytime and we can hang. And
that's right.
He was a sweetheart of a guy. Yeah, I owe a lot to him. He was a nice guy. Put me up for free, basically.
Wow.
Yeah, for free. Let me stay in the shack. And then the cool thing with that is, all these shapers from around the world would come in, and that's how I met John Carper and all these guys. And then I got a job with John Carper fixing surfboards, and that's how I made a little bit of money there. I was really good at fixing boards. And then I ended up linking up with Locomotion and a couple other big names, and all of a sudden I had 30, 40, 50 boards to fix, and that's how I started making some pretty good money to survive on the North Shore.
Yeah.
I'm stoked on that.
Yeah, it doesn't take much when you're,
Yeah.
It's just you and you're young and
surfing and you're no rent.
Just a roof over my head, and I got boards that aren't broken.
Just simple living.
The money is good for what it is, for what you're doing.
But again, it goes back to now I was a ding repair guy, kind of running my own little business.
Yeah.
And I wasn't relying on anybody. I was kind of controlling my own destiny at that point. I could make it as big or as small as I want. I can go to Town and Country and ask them if they had any boards they needed fixing, or whoever else that was, was a label.
Yeah.
So it was pretty cool.
It's all about the little hustles that that kind of keep the momentum going.
Well, it ended up all being part of the bigger story down the line.
Yeah.
Which is starting your own stuff.
So
being an entrepreneur.
So from Hawaii, then where?
From Hawaii, after that, hanging out on the North Shore for quite a bit, and I realized, you know what? My parents had moved to France, to Marseille.
Sold the
Florida.
businesses?
Yeah, my dad sold his businesses. It was time. His parents were getting older. He wanted to be closer to them. Moved to Marseille. And then I was like, you know what? Maybe I'll do that. I moved to Marseille for a week, and then went, this is shit. I'm over it. And then I met a guy actually that his brother lived in Hossegor, and that was the game plan. So I ended up meeting the brother when I went to Hossegor, and we hit it off. And he ended up letting me stay with him, and I ended up moving to Hossegor for probably about 2.5 years.
That'd be a hard spot to leave too.
Yeah.
It
was awesome.
When you decide to leave Oahu to live with your parents.
Yeah, for a minute. It wasn't the.
But you decide to move over there, thinking that you were going to live there, right?
Yeah.
Now, did you have any forethought of work or
No. So this is the thing again, being the.
What do you mean? I'm living at mom and dad's house.
So that's a great question though, because what I did was I did load up on stuff. So I fixed a bunch of boards, 2 board bags full of surfboards. I knew if I needed to sell any, I could. I knew France was expensive. So I had all of Andy's old boards, Kelly's old boards that I would fix, and just everybody's that I could get that was popular or famous or a pro surfer. I knew that crap kind of went big in France. So when I went to Marseille, I just left them in bags because it wasn't the spot. I didn't feel okay, I need to sell any here. I moved to Hossegor, I would run out of money, I would sell a board, sell 2 boards, and then just kind of stack. And then I did the same thing when I went to Hossegor. I linked up with all the surf shops there, and Maurice Cole was one of the big guys that he gave me all the boards to fix as well. So I started the business again out at La Piste, which is where I lived in Hossegor, France, and then I started my business out there selling boards and fixing boards, and then that was pretty fun. It was a fun
to be young
for a
again.
while. Yeah.
So that was your livelihood.
Yeah,
fixing boards.
Yeah, fixing boards. I started getting glassing a little bit. I started experimenting with glassing and stuff, but realized I made way more money fixing boards, and it was way less. It was less toxic.
Yeah.
So I was like, I can work outside. I don't have to be structured in this thing, and I could be. We had a great little a backyard, and set up 2 little sawhorses and just fix boards in between sessions, and it was awesome.
Yeah, because I mean it's a full-time job, but it's like you know
No,
you got there's steps and you got less steps.
You can do it whenever the hell you want.
Right. Yeah.
You can work
Set your
all
own
day
schedule.
long or not work at all.
Yeah.
I mean, as a surfer, like most guys work at night in the restaurant industry,
Right,
or they do something where you have that flexibility.
Right. So my roommate actually ended up telling me, "Hey, I'm gonna close up my house. I'm gonna go to Indonesia one of the summers." And I was like, "Oh my god, I don't have money for that." So he's like, "I'm giving you 2 months warning. Like either you can come with me to Indo, or you can just basically find another place till I get back." And I was like, "Shit, okay, let me try to figure this out." So he had a friend that owned a restaurant bar that he was like, "Okay, look, you can at nights you can go and hustle and make money there, and during the day you can fix boards." So I was like, "Oh, great idea." So I remember just getting all excited, a little nervous because I'd never worked in the restaurant industry. It looked hard as ever to me, I was so intimidated. And when I walked in, the restaurant bar turned into a club, and he didn't tell me. And before you know it, it just became mayhem, and I ended up kind of just walking off. I was like, "This is just not for me." And I ended up walking home and going, "Okay, I got to figure this out." I ended up just like working that much harder during the day to get money, and that was my first trip to Indo was with him. So I ended up like raising enough money, going
Bali
to Indo.
nightlife,
Yeah.
blowing up, lots of
So
entertainment.
that was my first taste of Indonesia was with him. It was such an eye opener. So yeah, I got a chance to go to Indonesia when I was living in France, so it's pretty damn cool.
And like, was Bali everything you saw and the mags and videos and stuff? Like,
Yeah, it was wild. When I landed, it was just first thing, I got the cheapest ticket I could find, so it was like 15 layovers. It was a nightmare.
took a week to get there.
Yeah, it took about a week to get there. Once I finally got there, it was like getting settled and all that. Yeah, it was like the introductions were pretty amazing. It was like Uluwatu, Bingen. Bingen was a lot of Bingen in the beginning.
Yeah.
And then the big
Such a good little wave.
Yeah, it was amazing. And again, we didn't have money to go to G-Land, the deserts or anything like that. And then we went to New Sulawesi, and that was baffling to me. It was like surfing like sunset, kind of Honolulu Bay mixed almost, and I was just obsessed with it. I stayed out there for quite a while, and then back to Bingen and just that whole thing. And I was still around.
And talking about living, cheap, compared to coming from France or Hawaii, which are pretty like premium places to even living at the low budget, still kind of gnarly.
You can live on $5 a day there.
You're living,
on $5 a day, you're living large.
Yeah, we were staying in cool places and just mixing it up with all the locals and stuff, and just surfing those type of waves. Okay, yeah, I surfed in Hawaii, and Hawaii is no Indo. It's still hard to surf, and you learn the most when you're in Hawaii. That's straight up, whether you like it or not. You're getting beat up and pounded, and you learn quicker because that's painful, right? So you're like, okay, I got to learn quick. But when you go to Indo and you can actually set up and get barreled and come out and get barreled again, and it's just mind blowing to the brain.
Yeah.
It's like, I can't. This is insane.
It's longer,
Yeah.
more perfect,
Yeah.
Mind
less
surfing. It's everything you would dream about.
Right.
less life threatening.
Yeah.
And
Paradise.
Oh.
Paradise. It's pure paradise. So yeah, from that I ended up going, obviously go back to France, and then from there I ended up going back to Hawaii, and then I was like, okay, I'm gonna cruise in Hawaii for a bit, and just kind of work my odd jobs, and then I met this woman, and she lived in Bali, ironically enough.
You met her in Hawaii?
Yeah, I met her in Hawaii just
Sugar
by
mama?
accident. It's kind of by accident, ended up being one. Yeah, I was kind of just again.
Boy Toy Abe?
Yeah.
Is that Aby Boy Toy?
So I met her, and she had a crush on me pretty quickly. I was a little tan little surfer, and she was like, "Okay, look, I think this is great. I want to continue seeing you. I live in Bali. Why don't you come out and meet me out there, and we can kind of keep this going."
I'll take care of you.
Yeah, it's kind of that. Embarrassingly enough, it was a little bit of that. But she was really sweet. She was, and I learned a lot from her because she was just an amazing human. But I ended up going, okay, screw it, a leap of faith, go out there. I didn't really know, if this didn't work out, I kind of screwed it. I'm in Indo, but I'd figure it out,
Yeah.
So I went out there, we hit it off, ended up dating her for like 2.5 years, and rode it as long as it felt sort of natural to do, and then it sort of fizzled out, and ended up kind of being on my own in Indo and going, okay, shit, now what? Now I'm here alone. This is pretty daunting.
How do you get like do you have to fly out of the country every 6 months? How are you?
Yeah. Well, I got on her cycle.
Okay.
So we'd fly out every 6 months to Singapore or Thailand or whatever, renew the visa and come back. Or like she would go, okay, well I'm gonna go to see my family, and I'd go with her, or vice versa. She'd come and see mine.
I mean, where is she from?
Winston-Salem, South Carolina.
Wow.
South Carolina or North Carolina? Shit, I don't know. Yeah,
South
the
Carolina,
Carolinas, South Carolina. So yeah, we'd go out there and stuff, and yeah, she was a phenomenal person. It was really cool. She helped me out a lot, and I learned a lot from her. And
was she just like independently wealthy, or?
Yeah, she was. She had a nice little clothing company, too, and she built that, and she earned hers from that as well, and yeah, it was cool.
So you took her blueprints.
Kind of like subliminally, almost like indirectly. It wasn't really like ever gonna be anything. I didn't know what it was gonna be, but she needed help to do this and that, and I would just help her. And
but Bali's such a good place to kind of like bring up that energy of
artistic.
You could go and start something and have that kind of real like energetic. Like,
there's opportunity. Yeah, there's opportunities
and
everywhere. You kind of just have to be open to it.
Yeah.
And I wasn't really.
Yeah.
I was just sort of like there to surf and hang out, and my eyes weren't open like that. I'm not an opportunistic like kind of guy like that.
Yeah.
It's not who I am. I just kind of when it comes to me, I attack and kind of expand, and I gotta be passionate about it.
Yeah.
I can't just go, oh, there's an opportunity here, and there's money. Doesn't. I don't
you're
really,
a surf turkey.
Yeah, 100%.
And, all you want to do is surf,
right?
Yeah.
And fix dings.
Yeah.
On the side so you could surf.
Right.
But that
that's the core.
Kuta and Bali in general, it's like you're just seeing new stuff go up, new businesses open, like it's just ever changing, and it just seems like there's just so much growth and opportunity.
So the crazy thing about it is now I parted ways with her. I'm on my own. Check into this like little 10 by 10 like little room basically, but I would still like surf my brains out. I have a motorbike. I had my music, my AirPod, my earphones, and just jam out all the way to the Bukit. So I was staying in Kuta because I couldn't afford being on the Bukit, so I just like had my little room. But every time I get to Warong in Ulus or Bingin or whatever, I would flip through the mags in between tides, and I'd see my friend Poncho Sullivan kicking ass, like on these spreads, and I would read word for word, thinking he would mention me or something, but never happened. But no, I would be so flippin' proud, and just like this feeling of like he's doing his thing there, I'm doing my thing there, but we're kind of connected in this weird way. And then I would run into him in Kuta in a restaurant or something, and just be so blown away, going, no fucking way, this is so cool.
That's so amazing.
And then all right, dude, I'll see you around.
Yeah.
And then run into him somewhere else or wherever traveling, and
because there's no internet and there's no cell phones.
So. Yeah, no way.
So you're like, I'll call you.
Yeah.
Or I'll write you a letter.
Emails.
No, not even. No, I never set my email up till 1998, and Dave Bonaventura was the first guy who did it for me.
Yeah, Dave.
We sat there, and he did a Hotmail account for me, and I'm like, what the hell is this? Do I need this? He's like, yeah, you need it. Trust me, you're gonna use it.
Earthlink and Hotmail were like that.
AOL.
Yeah. So yeah,
Early
so that was kind of the big moment for me. That was a defining moment where I ended up like being on my own now, and like now I'm like 22-ish, and this little like crappy little room right next door to it, there was like a little mom and pop little like factory almost. They would clothing factory, and I paid no mind of it. I just kind of like, hey, what's up? Talk to the people there when I pull up my dirt bike after I surfed. But this one defining moment was when I needed money. I was like, oh shit, I would always sell something. So at the time I was sponsored, and I would sell a pair of sunglasses or whatever, a wetsuit or whatever. And I was like, shit, I need
running dry.
Yeah, well, I was running dry, but I remember I still had a couple of like I remember I had an Andy Irons, Eric Arakawa, and a Kelly board, and a couple of one Shane Dorian's board. So I was like, okay, I gotta sell some of this crap and really get some money going, So I remember walking into a surf shop in Kuta, and my dad always taught me don't ever disturb any business going on. So the owner was talking to this potential customer that he had in the store. The guy was kind of walking around looking at the selection of the boards and all the other crap. But I remember overhearing their conversation. I got close enough, and the guy was saying like, "Oh, me and my friends, we need like 4 or 5 boards and board bags. We're going to G-Land tomorrow, and then we're going to do all these trips." So Bali was basically a jumping off spot, basically. So I don't know what it was exactly, but he was dissatisfied with the selection. And my whole motive was to go talk to the owner.
Mm-hmm.
But for some weird reason, I followed the guy out the door. And I was like, I guess I was thinking like, oh, if he says no, I can always double back and get the owner. He's not going anywhere.
Yeah.
So when I walked out to talk to the guy, I said, hey man, I didn't mean to eavesdrop.
So you're going to sell the boards to the owner.
Just dump some boards and just get some money and whatever. I knew he was going to probably price gouge me, but something's better than nothing.
Yeah.
But when I walked out, I kind of followed him and I said, hey man, I don't mean to eavesdrop or anything, but I overheard your conversation. My room is right down the road, and I've got like everything you need. I've got about 10 different boards and board bags and all this stuff, leashes, and I could really load you up and charge you pretty good price. You'll be stoked. He's like, fuck that. Came down, ended up striking a deal for a bunch of boards and gave me $2,500 US in cash. And I was just like, holy shit, I made it.
Yeah.
I'm done. I'm fucking
I'm
done.
here for another year.
Yeah.
I'm good to go. I'm going to prepay this shitty little room for the next year, and I'm just going to live. And for some reason, the next day, I called my dad. And my dad was like, hey, his words, so French. He's like, don't be an idiot. You're going to spend it all in one spot. My friend that owns stores in Lincoln Road in Miami Beach says that right now a lot of stuff from Bali is really hot and happening. Why don't you make some stuff for him and you can sell it to him? Wow. That was his deal. That's what he said.
Like what kind of stuff? Just like
clothing, because he had clothing stores.
Clothing.
Clothing stores. He had a couple of electronic stores. He's actually the guy that bought my dad's stores, ironically enough. But he was a family friend, so I knew the guy pretty well. I used to babysit his kids. I'm not gonna say his name because he ended up kind of screwing me in the end. But so I was like, okay. I was like, okay, I can do this.
So your dad gave you the idea.
He gave me the idea.
Okay.
Indirectly, kind of,
like stuff's cheap there. You can kind of load up with that and come back
start
and make
something.
it.
He said, but his words were, "Don't be an idiot," and that rang in my head. I didn't want to disappoint him. So I went to the guy next door, the little mom and pop factory, and the guy was like, "Yeah, sure, let's go. This is how you do it." And he gave me all the blueprints to how to start a little production and helped me out along the way.
What were you gonna make?
Board shorts, sundresses, Hawaiian shirts, and sarongs. That was basically it. And that was my go-to. And when the dust settled, I had so much crap in my little room that I was like, how am I bringing this back to Florida? How am I going to bring all this back? This is insane. And I just remember just getting a bunch of board bags and just jamming them in my board bags and my everything. Carry-on, they jammed a bunch of shit in my carry-on, and I pulled it off somehow.
When he gives you this idea,
yeah.
In your mind, are you the plan of making stuff, categories, and then pricing? Like, did you think that out before you landed?
Yeah, remember, for me, it was always just like not a real game plan. You think about like the surfboard thing I did, there wasn't really a game plan there. So I thought, okay, I'm going to build, stuff. And then you just kind of keep going, and it was kind of fun.
Yeah.
So I'm going to build more stuff, and I'm going to buy more sarongs, and I'm getting these sarongs at like $2. Okay, I could sell them for 10. That's still cheap,
Yeah.
I could sell them at 8 and still make a killing. So that's my mentality was that, and it wasn't like thinking I'm going to build something here. It was like a one time thing.
We'll give this a shot.
That's it.
Yeah.
That's it. And it's just, okay, Dad, let me show you I can do it, and let me see if this will work.
So you load it up, you get to.
I finally get to Miami, and I'm all like frothing. See my dad, and he's kind of going through a thing with my mom. They're on the way out. They're having a hard time basically, and my dad's dealing with his set of challenges. And I load up the car the next morning. I go to these stores. I meet the owner, my dad's friend, and I tell him I actually arrogantly double park, thinking it was going to be a give and go. I had my trunk filled. I was like, okay, the stuff's in the trunk. Like, where's the cash?
Yeah.
And he was like, I have no idea what you're talking about. Your dad misunderstood what I said. I want nothing from you. In fact, you're double parked. You got to get your car out of here. You're going to get fucking ticketed.
What?
And I was like, are you fucking kidding me? And I was like, just take a look at this stuff. It's killer. Like, you have a store. You need stuff. And he was like, no, come on. Let's keep it moving, kid. And I knew the guy, and he just treated me like that, and I was like, okay, this is gonna be tough, because again, my life wasn't in Miami. I did not want to be there.
Yeah, you were gonna
make some cash.
Drop
next ticket out of town.
That's it.
You're gonna drop
That's
the
it.
package and get back on a plane.
And get back on a plane. Exactly. Say hi to my mom.
So now
high five my friends.
So
and
now you gotta find.
Yeah.
how am I going to get rid of this?
Right. So I go back home seething, and I wait till my dad gets home. And mind you, my dad's from Marseille. He doesn't take shit.
Yeah.
I get in there and I'm just like, oh, I'm gonna tear him a new one. And I'm like, hey man, like I don't know what the hell's going on, but da da da. He said, hey, look, kid, I got bigger problems than this. I'm divorcing my mom and I are going through a divorce. Like tomorrow morning, what you do is this: you take the car, you go downtown Miami, and you drive along the coast to Jacksonville, and you hit up every store you can find, and that's how you're gonna sell it. And don't bother me with your problems. That's it. That's pretty much the only option you have. What else do you have to do?
Yeah.
Your money's tied up in this.
Sink or swim.
Those are easy problems, son.
Yeah.
I got bigger.
Sink or swim.
Exactly. So I took his advice. I went down to downtown Miami, and I was familiar with it because my dad would do business down there, so it wasn't that foreign to me, But it was a little eerie, going in now and trying to sell from door to door. It was kind of
you had to present. You had a game plan. You got to
and talk about
have a shtick.
There was no comfort zone. I didn't know what that was. I didn't have the audacity to have a comfort zone.
Yeah.
So it was like going into shops with I would call it my demo tape. I'd go in with one pair of shorts and a Hawaiian shirt, and go in there and go, hey, do you need anything? I've got stuff like that. Are you interested in it? And get 4 or 5 no's. I never let it discourage me. I was like, okay, it's all good. Keep on going.
But every single time, you're thinking up of new creative
pitch.
buzzwords.
Bingo. And that's what it was. It was like, why did I fucking fumble so hard? Why was I so nervous? They're just people, it's just, it's not a big deal. Yeah, it's not a big, what's a no, it's like, I get rejected by chicks all the time. What's the difference, Walk up to a chick at a bar.
This is exotic.
Yeah.
Handmade.
Yeah. From
Balinese.
Silk woven from the finest butterflies in the continent of Sumatra.
But to sidetrack a little bit, we were trying to train this little kid, cool little kid to kind of become a sub rep with us. And that's how I appreciate it. I'm like, you know what? You're going to be hustling. You're going to hear a lot of no's, dating the chick. You're going to hear all these no's. You're going to get the one. It's you're going to be just so over the moon, excited, but you got to have tough. You got to hear no. Fire you up and fine tune. But you heard a few no's. And
heard a bunch of no's, and then I finally got a yes. And then that was it. Once I heard a yes, it was like, if I hear one yes, I'm going to hear a bunch more, and I can actually do this, because we're joking around a lot, but to be honest, I did not want to be in Florida. I really despised it. My life was in Indo. That was the whole thing. It was in Indonesia. My stuff was still there. It was like, how do I sell this stuff and get out of here? And it took me quite a while. So I ended up getting a couple yeses and going back and told my dad, hey, actually, you know what, it's gonna work. It's gonna be okay. I'm gonna pull this off, And he was like, okay, cool. Tomorrow you just go up further north, and then over the years you meet people, and so I was staying in other friends' homes, and obviously there's no hotels. I couldn't afford that.
How long? How many no's and how many days or months was that first trip?
I stayed on the road for probably about, I would say, 3 weeks at least.
You got rid of everything?
No. I would max it out. I would go up coast. The waves would be good, so that kind of helped. I would meet a chick and kind of stay with her, and that's how it went, honestly. And then I would go visit these stores, and up coast was a different world than Miami. They understood what board shorts were and Hawaiian shirts and sundresses. So I was like, oh shit, okay, I'm selling 5 to 1 back there, so I'm gonna stay up here for a while. I stayed with my friend Spanky. He helped me out a lot. My buddy Spanky was the man. He was actually trying to do his own thing with his own company, and he was making little edit and videos. Then he got into apparel, and so he was really interested in what I was doing. And he just put me up and let me stay at his house for weeks at a time, and it was rad. And then I would go back home, reset, see my dad, hang out a little bit, and then hit the road again. And then I would say about 2 months it took me to get rid of everything. But the coolest thing is the last final trip when I went back from north-south to Miami, I started getting reorders. And I was like, holy shit.
Because people are just testing it. Giving you a little I'll buy a couple and see how it goes.
Yeah, that was the epiphany for me.
And did you have that, did your dad or anybody tell you hey, make sure you follow up with these stores, they might want more? Or you
No. At that point, my dad can care less what the hell was going on with me. It was like, It was like, okay, I gave you the blueprint. I gave you a couple tips. You're on your own. And I never really, I'm a figure it out kind of guy. I don't really like I want to figure it out on my own. It's a different set of kind of challenges that I like to face and deal and kind of get out of the little weird sticky situations on my own. I think it builds a lot of character instead of trying to get bailed out. So I started getting reorders and went shit up. I doubled up on my money and went, okay, I think I can do this again. And then...
Did you come up with Island Daze's name yet?
No, it wasn't. It was called Islandwear, actually. And then, ironically enough, a friend came up with the name Island Daze. And then I started doing Island Daze and then went, okay, the second time. So I go, okay, I went back to Indo with some money. I was like, okay, I'm going to do it again. I learned some mistakes. I learned what didn't sell. I'm going to nix that. I'm going to double up on what sold really well. And then I started planning out better. And then it sort of started evolving from there.
So the first trip, you were able to stuff it in all your bags, board bags, everything. Yeah. Second trip, you're doubling, tripling.
Board bags.
Board bags again.
Yeah, doubling board bags. It wasn't that big yet, but so the second trip was the really big sort of defining moment where it was like, okay, what am I going to do here?
Can I ask how much you invested and how much was your...
My first sort of like investment was $2,000. And then the second one was roughly about $6,000. So I made some pretty good money. And when I went back, I invested probably like 5.5 of it in products. So when I went back, I ended up going to a surf shop by the name of the Longboard House, and the owner was Mike Mann. And that was the big moment for me. Is he ended up writing ended up being like a $15,000 order for private label stuff. So and it was like,
when was is that the first private label?
Yeah, that was the first private label thing, and I didn't know what it was. It was like, because I was selling basically blanks at the time.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? I never pushed my own label in
There's no logo or anything.
No, it was all white label stuff. It was all blanks.
And were they putting labels on their end, or
no,
were they selling it?
He just wanted to do, hey, can we do this Longboard House? And
What's that?
What is that? Yeah, I was like, how am I going to do that? I just didn't know how to even do it. But
you're like learning everything.
Everything. And this is 1998, and there was nobody really to sort of emulate or look at for influence or sort of inspiration. It was all on my own. But the best part about this was my buddy, Jimmy Allison, was my neighbor in Indonesia. And he was the one that said, yeah, you should only focus on private labeling.
Wow.
That was the biggest thing.
Like, don't start another surf brand.
No.
Like, just do what you're doing. It's working.
Yeah, because at that point, there was a name. It was Island Daze. And I was like, okay, I'll just put Island Daze on everything. And he stopped me, and because we surfed together pretty much every day. This guy is a legend. He's an awesome guy from Florida, ironically enough. And he'd been in Indo for 20 years already. And he was an amazing dude. He always took the time in his own weird sort of like harsh ways of just teaching me things in a way. And he just told me, hey, only focus on private labeling. I promise, don't do a label. And he had done other things, and so he had learned. And he's like, focus on that, and you'll thank me later. Damn. And that was the big turning point.
What an amazing foresight and vision that, because again, starting your own label, what you did, you started your own label, but not really.
Right. I started my own company, basically.
Started your own company.
Yeah.
But him knowing that it takes marketing, it takes, so much more,
advertising. Yeah. Just
so much more help to be a brand.
Yeah. Sponsoring people and marketing dollars and budgets and all. I didn't have the means, nor did I ever want it.
Yeah.
What he said was, you should support the retailers. You should make them the brand. They need to understand that they're a brand. And it took me a minute to understand that. But once I started getting in there and dealing with BC Surf Shop, like Bruce at BC and all these other companies, I started realizing like they don't think they're really a brand. They would do t-shirts and hats, but man, a brand is wider than just that. So maybe I can help them. Maybe I can do some other things here. And then it started snowballing, and it started working. And the Mike Mann thing, the $15,000 order, he sat me down and he went, hey, do you ever think about doing this for a living? And I said, no, not really. I'm just kind of like winging it. I'm just doing it basically like, shipment at a time, like, little productions at a time. He's like, you should really think about it because the stuff you sold us sold better than anything we have in our stores. Do you understand what that means? And I said, I've got no idea what the hell you're talking about, buddy. He's like, you should think about doing this, and this is how you should do it. Have you ever thought about doing a trade show? And I said, what the fuck is a trade show?
Yeah.
I have no idea what the hell that is. He said, there's one in our neighborhood, in our area. It's Surf Expo, the one in Orlando. And I go, well, how do I get in that? And that's where he goes, well, I got a friend that you can share a booth with. He's a surfboard shaper. He does this, and you can maybe share a booth with him.
Cut costs down, at least get in the show.
Yeah, exactly, because it was so expensive. And then I went, oh shit, okay, here we go. And then that's where it sort of started, like, for real.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's insane.
Yeah.
I just stopped. I gotta go.
Oh shit, what time is
I
it?
gotta.
4:22. Fuck, I want to continue this.
I know, me too.
I'm going. Well, I'm gonna be here. I changed my schedule.
What are you guys doing?
I'm leaving on Sunday. I'm leaving on Monday. So I'm going to the Laker game on Sunday, I think.
Nice.
Okay.
Yeah.
I can be back in an hour.
Oh, let's hang.
Yeah.
Yeah, we can finish this up. Yeah, it's probably better.
You good with that?
Yeah,
Okay.
for sure. I thought another day.
Okay.
Yeah, this is good.
I gotta pick up my kid,
Yeah.
take her somewhere.
Yeah, I was gonna
for
say
appointment.
because tomorrow I got fucking shit to do.
Lars, can you do it?
Yeah,
today?
I'm good.
Okay, let's finish
Okay.
up. Yeah,
I'll be back.
Maybe go for.
You guys ready?
Okay. That's my brewski. My shoots beer.
Shoots.
So good, right?
And we're back.
Okay, here we go.
3, 2, 1.
So how was that first Surf Expo then?
It was pretty eye-opening because from the beginning it was like going to shops and trying to get business from shop to shop, and also you're limited, from the Florida coast for the
One-man
most part.
show.
Yeah, you're one-man show, and you're trying to basically drum a business, and you don't really know where to start. So your blueprint is pretty limited for the most part. And then once I went to this trade show, and people from all over started coming in. You got buyers from Jersey and New York and all these different great spots, and you realize, wow, there's a whole industry here that I had no idea existed really at the end of the day. So when I started getting orders from other states, different states, and these other accounts started approaching, and I was doing private labeling, and they seemed really interested, it was like, okay, wow, I really do have a opportunity here to make this even bigger than I ever thought I would make it.
So how big was your spot, your booth?
Oh, it was a 10 by 10. It was a 10 by 20, and I shared half, so it was a 10 by 10. So that was the OG first booth, was a 10 by 10.
And it was Island Days?
It was Island Days, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah,
Same product line that you were already slanging.
Yeah,
Stuff from Bali.
Yep. I kind of refined it a little bit more. Every time I did anything, I would sort of adjust it a little bit and just go, okay, well, I'm doing this. I got to make sure it's tighter, and everything was a little tighter and tighter. By the time I did the trade show, it was good, of course.
So was it like sarongs and?
No. It became more like of what actually was selling. So it was more board shorts at that point.
Okay.
It was more Hawaiian, like really nice, like woven Hawaiian shirts and batiks and stuff like that. A little more unique. And
did you still have the mindset of doing private label, or?
it was 100% private label.
Okay.
Yeah, that never changed. I never veered off of that idea.
Yeah.
It just grew from there. It just grew stronger in different ways that I can do it better.
Yeah.
That's kind of.
Was there other similar brands
Competition?
or competition at that time?
At the time, no, there was none. Really,
Just all
that I
the
thought
surf
of.
labels
Yeah,
and
a lot
all
of
the
surf.
resort.
Yep, a ton of surf labels, resort stuff.
What year was that?
1999 at that point.
Okay.
Yep, 99 2000, and I just again head down.
You kind of mentioned it, like the opportunity. It's like with you in your car driving up and down Florida coast.
Right.
It's like you're fishing in a pond, right? And then now you're fishing in an ocean.
Yeah.
Because everyone comes to
Yeah,
that show.
The show's huge.
Huge.
Yeah.
And when you walk that floor, and back then it was even bigger, I think.
Yeah, it was a big show.
Yeah.
It was definitely big.
Because the resort stuff, the bikini. I've never walked down the bikini aisle.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Uh-huh.
Sure. pretend you tie your shoe for 10 minutes.
Yeah.
But you had to have like
Man, well, I
like
don't know
line-
how I keep ending up over here.
But you had to have like line sheets, lead times. Like, was everything kind of buttoned up a little bit, or were you just collecting orders?
You know what? It was just about collecting orders at that point. I had a small line, and it was basically like piecemealing it at that point.
Yeah.
It wasn't that refined or anything. Remember, it was like maybe like a year or two at this point.
Crazy.
And I did what I could, and but I got business out of it, and you know, way bigger than I thought it would ever be. I ended up walking out of the show with physical orders in my hands of people from like Martha's Vineyard and Long Island and these places that I never even thought of going to. And how could I get there? I'd have to fly there or drive for days on end.
What was their draw to you? Was it the product, or like once they sat down and saw the product, oh, that looks good, and they sat down like, wow, this is really good pricing, and like...
It was a combination of dumb luck of them just stumbling upon it, and me probably being a little bit aggressive in the aisle going, hey, do you sell this type of products in your shop? Oh, you do? Come check this out. Like, I was pretty aggressive. I wasn't just sitting there on my thumbs waiting for people to come into my booth.
For sure.
No way.
Because the concept of private label, even back then, it was happening, but not everybody was doing it the way that you were going to do it for them, right? Like, for the most part, private label
was printables.
Hats, t-shirts, sweatshirts, and not really cut and sew.
Yeah, right. And the fact that you're a surfer and your passion was like, hey, how do I make a really good board short, and how to like, you know, create short,
something stylish, something cool print.
Like not knowing the business and even thinking of a business, but that ended up being your moneymaker.
Yeah.
Right. So you guys both bring up a great point. It was two things actually. My goal was to make the ultimate pair of board shorts. At least try to make the ultimate pair of board shorts. And obviously you're trying to look at the top guys, the Billabongs, the Quakes, all these big companies that were doing such a great job at it, and their workmanship was so good. And I couldn't really do it where I was at. Bali, I kind of started out growing it slowly, and I realized, okay, I got to go somewhere else, you know, and make this happen. My whole thing was point of difference.
Yeah.
Okay, well, if you're going to do t-shirts and hat out of the States, I can't do t-shirts and hats. I can't compete. I'm in Asia. I'm overseas. What can I do that they don't have?
Right.
So, okay, so I go, okay, well, I'm going to build the best short, private label short that I can possibly make. That was the whole plan. And I go, okay, well, it's not going to happen in Bali. I'm going to go to Jakarta. So that was the big sort of jump over and going into like a major factory now, and, you know, having my shit together and going, okay, well, I need to, you know, graduate here from the minors into the sort of the majors in a way. Yeah. It was a big deal.
And what was it like to have, like, going into and getting stuff built in Bali? Do you have to, or Indonesia specifically, like business license? How did you organize getting product in and out, and what did you have to have on both ends, like as far as like
business license?
Yeah.
We don't need those stinking business
right?
license.
But you know what I mean? Like at one point, you can't carry this over in your board bag.
Right.
You got to bring a container of boxes and really ship.
After Surf Expo, it started growing quite rapidly. Actually, I started realizing, okay, I got an opportunity here. I need to like really, really push this, and that's when I started like going from coast
Bring
to
in
coast.
5 friends with you with board bags. Okay, Poncho, you can carry 2. You're big. Landon, I don't know. He's not on this.
You used to like bribe everybody, come down and come surf Bali and stay with me. And then they, hey, can you go home with these 4 board bags? No.
Oh, by the way,
So
I got an extra board bag that I need you to bring back.
Yeah, it started getting pretty serious. So I started driving, let's say, from like Miami all the way up the coast to like basically Maine.
Wow.
And then I would drive back and then jump on a plane and do the same thing in California. I'd get in my car and go from like Ivy all the way to like Santa Barbara.
This is yellow page shit.
Like And then friends. You got it. And then after I did that, I would go to Hawaii and stay with Poncho, and then kind of cruise with those guys, and then I do the same thing on that island and just go from
So you
shop to shop by myself. Like,
you had a business model set before Surf Expo, and then at Surf Expo, your business model is private label.
That's it,
right?
Yeah, plain it. Yeah.
And when you decide that, figure that out, and there's a need, was it easy? Like, it sounds like it got pretty easy. No, like you know what I mean. Like when a retailer comes to you and they go, "What's your brand?" I go,
right.
You know, like we kind of talked about this,
like your stick, or like the way you presented the brand, like you narrowed in on like got rid of sarongs, got rid of this, I focused on this, and now you're getting like you're seeing the reward.
Right. So then cut to like a few years after, it started getting more and more, you know, tighter, and like started doing rash guards and things like that, and it became, you know, evident that I need to reach out more to other retailers. And yeah, it became, I wouldn't say easier, it never became easier, but the gospel I was preaching was being received a little bit better. You know what I mean? Like, it wasn't like, you remember at that time, the Quicks and you know, these major, you know, behemoth companies were blowing up. It was they were the guys. So I was under the radar dude that came in, building these products for these shops, wanting to support them, and it was received well, but it wasn't like open arms. You know, cut to 26 years later. You still have to like kind of you know, explain to them why you would need this, and this makes sense for you. You're already doing this and it's successful. So there was a lot of like convincing and explaining, and it was awesome. I didn't mind. It wasn't like I ever went home frustrated. I never felt like they're not paying attention or they're not listening. It wasn't like that ever my career.
We talked about this the other day in our meetings. It's like, you know, your brand is their brand, right? Like when you're making stuff for them with their name on it, which makes it even more valuable to them, you know?
Yeah.
And the margin's better. That's like so unique in in our world of like the Billabongs, the Rukas, the Rivia projects.
Yeah.
You know, like all those brands, they're their own brands. But you're going to Cinnamon Rainbows, and you're, you know,
but that
BC Surf and Sport. It's like you're an ally. Those guys are allies, but you're even more of an ally.
Ally that gets trades happen all the time, and stuff happens to where they might not be as valuable. That pie changes where their brand could be very consistent. The way they look, and that's how surf shops were built on. It was their label, it was their brand. And then the surf world exploded, and then they started getting all this cool designer and the sponsors and the logos, and they started, you know, that started fueling the fire, which is great, but I kind of lost the you know, that branding for the shop. And you know, here you come in right. I think good timing. You know?
And that's the thing is, I always took a lot of pride in that, you know, and I always felt like we were advocating for the accounts and for these. From day one, I always thought they were a brand. You mean you're walking into a Ronjon or a Cinnamon Rainbow, and you're talking to Dave and Phil at Cinnamon Rainbow, for example. They're great partners and
I just texted with Phil.
Great dudes, awesome. And you go and fill their needs of what they need, and your line starts getting better, and they tell you what you're missing, and it's this great partnership that you have, and it's something that I'm really grateful for, and I get to do this. I'm really honored to do it, and that never 26 years later, and that feeling has not faded one bit. So
you've created the mixing business with pleasure scenario that every person wants.
I mean, you started this essentially like, how do I create more money so I could keep surfing in Bali? Or travel.
How can I live in Bali?
And then
what can I do in Bali to stay in Bali?
And ding repair wasn't going to cut it. You know? But you know, just what, you know, from that first batch at $2,000 and going doing that road trip, and then you know, like, what a great trajectory, and like you know, but a lot of sacrifice, a lot of like hard work. Like you're, you know, like it wasn't gonna, you know, it's not like you started hiring all these people. You're like, I'm doing this myself, and you did it on the west or East Coast, the West Coast, Hawaii, everywhere.
Thanks, man.
The whole,
appreciate that,
because you know you're very passionate about quality, design, like. You're learning everything. You've learned everything on the fly.
Yeah, absolutely.
You couldn't go to school for it, or it was kind of, you know what I mean? Like it was too late to do that. You were just doing it.
And sometimes that's not the right choice anyways. When you got something, you just got to roll with the punches and deal with it like you would having issues like we were talking about with traveling. You know, it's like nothing goes as planned. You're always going to have some obstruction. Something's going to go wrong. Like, drama's going to happen,
but it's kind of cool
how you persevere from that to like kind of, you know,
overcome adversity.
It's kind of cool though. What I'm trying to say is like he went to the mom and pop Balinese factory.
And now he's going.
And they're doing sarongs and like, you know what I mean, like shit that first store that you sold to really didn't want, but you thought that they wanted it, and you're selling them what you think should come from Bali, right? And then flip it around, you're creating stuff that you want to wear, right?
And now they want it all.
And now, you know what I mean?
Yeah,
like
it's
that's
exciting.
Like
that's
with the board short, that's you know, like a sarong's cool, and maybe you get more bang for your buck because it's $2 a piece, and it's easy, and it's not like some big production, like it's plentiful, tons of prints, but it's like, you know, you're developing something you always wanted to like be proud about, like the best board short, and then that's what took off.
Right.
You probably would have been just as stoked if the sarongs or some other like category did well, and you're still killing it, but like the fact that it came back to what you initially set your mind to.
Well, to touch on what you had said about, you know, not going to design school, I mean, obviously I could have taken that route. I mean, you figure out a way to do it, but that was never really my journey. It was sort of trial and error, and I'm a big fan of that. And I don't necessarily like believe in sort of, you know, roadblocks. I don't really see those as challenges. I just kind of go around them or go through them. And I've got a real sort of mindset of this, you know, obsession. You know, I live this passion and obsession that gets me through any kind of adversity. That's the way I live, no matter whatever it is, whether it's surfing big waves or business or whatever next chapter I'm dealing with, whatever I'm getting into, you know, business I'm getting into. And that's what my mindset is, because you're going to deal with challenges and all that good stuff. And I don't see that as obstacles. I see that as opportunity.
Well, I think that's the cool part of the story, you know, because like what you morphed into and developed yourself into is a niche. You know, we talk about with other entrepreneurs, right? Like they find the white space, right? Or they, like our friends.
We hate that term,
but it's
find,
real, right? Like you have to find a niche.
Where's the niche?
You found that niche of like, and luckily it was like almost handed to you.
It was kind of dumb luck in a way.
Yeah. But you know, people can get that information or that idea or that suggestion or advice handed to them, but if they don't like look at it the way that you looked at it as an opportunity, right?
Yeah.
And you ran with the ball,
right?
Like you took it as far.
How many business great ideas, or you know, I have the backing. They might have the financials. They might have everything. And it doesn't succeed. Because you know, you gotta have drive. You gotta be scrappy. You gotta be able to like roll and not take no.
Right.
Or no means I'm gonna make it. You know, there's this like. You were saying
no is the sexiest word in the English language.
I love it.
But you
turn that no into a maybe, that maybe into a yes.
Yeah.
That's kind of how it works.
So you're saying there's a chance.
Exactly.
And there's a lot of people that have created successful businesses that we've talked to, and just in general. But the common denominator amongst them all, whether you have money or you have a backing, is a passion and not taking no for an answer and not giving up, and willing to put in the time and work and effort. And you're going to get breaks, and you're going to, you know, then you're going to get set back, and then you're going to freaking, you know, it's just always evolving.
Right. And I think those breaks come when you are passionate and your heart's in the right place and you're putting in the work and all that. Those breaks don't come when you're trying to find excuses and you know,
you're creating opportunity.
Trying to create shortcuts and stuff like that. So I do this like, well, you know, this mentorship program with these kids sometimes, and they come to my shop and I show them around, and you know, we all sit around and you sort of explain me their ideas of what they want to do after college and things like that. And pretty much most of them, they always get stuck on the small details of like, well, how do I go from here to here? How do I get the money? And how do I, you know, it's all the little minutia that they don't really
walk before you run.
It's like they want to see the 15th step clearly before they go 1, 2, 3, 4, the proper steps, and with the, you know, the first step, the second step leads you to the third and fourth and fifth. They want to leapfrog. They want to know for sure what's going to happen at the 15th step. And you're like, dude,
and that's
you don't know.
That's okay to know the 15 steps, but look at 1 and 2 before you look at 5, 6,
Right, but
7.
when you're a business owner and you're starting something, you don't know what the hell that 15 steps going to be. It could be basically like you could be at this mark, you know, on the 10th step, and you're trying to prepare for that chapter that might not come right now or might come sooner. So it's like just keep it going, and if you're passionate about it and you got to be obsessed with it, to be honest with you.
What's funny is like
you gotta be obsessed.
You can basically mirror somebody else's blueprint, right? And step by step fucking road to fucking prosperous business.
Plenty of books out there that will give the roadmap.
Right.
But no matter what it is, you won't get the same results. Sometimes you will, but like you said, it's all about obsession, passion, hard work.
Right.
You know, there's people that get lucky,
right?
But you know what? Like, if you really look at it and you really, you know, dissect and look under the hood of how did that guy fucking, how was he successful? He's like, whatever, you know what I mean? Like, but it's like, it's because he was passionate and hard working.
There was without, you know, doing too many sidetracks, but just a couple of our, you know, stories that popped in my head. Chad Danina from Nixon. He was working at the mall and he was making his own watch bands.
From the wetsuit, you know, like wetsuits come with the extra piece of
that's
so
awesome.
He was like
I love that.
working at some mall, surf, you know, skate.
Pacific somewhere, but not Pacific somewhere.
Yeah, and doing that, and he's making these and slanging a few, you know, watch bands, you know, just kind of full hobby, whatever. And then, you know, fast forward, you know, works at shops and, you know, partners up, and he decides like, I want, you know, he had a really successful career as a marketing or advertising sales. And long story short, I'm going to do you know, but, you know, back in the day, it was like he already had that like, that passion, that vision of like creating. He just loved like when you're successful and knowing that's the first thing a young person or an adult that has money,
status symbol.
And that just stuck, and you know, hey, I can only afford to doing like these bands, but later he
was walking with a friend and said, I got a killer paycheck, I want to buy a watch. That was as a reward to himself. And he bought like a Timex or something like that. Like nothing bougie, but a nice Timex timepiece, and that was his like, oh, I made it. Like,
and this
it's all relative, man. It's all relative.
And this
you know, so Timex for him was a great piece, and another little side story. This other kid, he's from Huntington, Dorian.
Nixon watches is what we're talking about.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah,
Chad and they know, right?
Yeah,
everybody else.
But not everybody.
But what about little Dorian?
Gotta give him the props.
So this one little kid, he's from Huntington, and he was built a bike kit to make his like her beach cruiser into an electric bike. It had like the little motor, you hook up like anyways, he bought this kit online, started doing
Amazon.
it. And people are like, oh, can you, you know, he was very handy, like, hey, can you like do my bike too? And he started doing all of that.
That's impressive.
You know? And then he started going on Alibaba, which is like, you know, the Amazon of China.
Sure.
Is it
Japanese Amazon? Or
Chinese.
Sorry, Chinese.
Yeah. Yes.
Come on.
And then he started just buying other parts and stuff. And then this kid's 18 and he has a website and he's slinging like all these like part gears. But it went from like the bikes to like mopeds to then going interning to Roland Sands, which is like up in Long Beach, one of the best bike builders. And he just had that drive and going back to the passion and drive. Like, I just want to learn more. And I want, you know, he started with a little fucking, you know, electric cruiser to working on like Vespas or like pedal Honda mopeds, and then go and work for one of the best. And now he's like building van kits, like built out vans, like the Sprinters, and has a huge company.
Van Smart and Van Speed is his two companies. He's only 22 years old.
That's incredible.
And it's like, you know,
passion.
Passion.
That's what it comes down
to. And that's why we're, you know, again, bringing back the common denominator.
And I tell you, sorry to cut you off, but the other thing also is if you make money the main focus and the driver, I think that's a dangerous mindset. Yeah. I mean, you can be concerned about it, and it could be in the back seat, but if it's driving and it's the engine, you know,
it's a wrong motive.
During those challenging times in that's your motivation, you will. I feel you'll burn out.
Yeah.
If you're not passionate about the actual business and the process and the product and stoking out these accounts and building a team and all that, if money is that, for me, money was always the byproduct. Period.
Yeah.
It was never the main focus.
Well, that's a good. I mean, that's great for like, you know, to hear, because you know, everybody has their reason to do something. You know, and like a lot of it's money. You know, like oh, I've seen this guy do that or that woman do that, and they built this business, and now they're just like jet set and they're rich and retired and sold their company. You know, and again, of course, everybody knows that's a reality if you just put in the hard work and you know put in the passion. And some people have a 5-year game plan. Some people like, hey, I'm going to do it. I'm going to work on it 20 years and then I'll cross that bridge to sell. But like, you never know what's, you know, don't look at the 15 step. Like, you want to just look what's in front of you. How do I do better? How do I offer, how do I get better? How do I offer, you know, a better product, things, especially in fast fashion, which we're in.
Totally,
like, stuff's changing. You know, hey, that board short's killer, that design's killer, but you know what, there's better material. Can we work on pricing? Give back to the retailer. You know, so it's never ending.
No.
You know, which keeps it inspiring and fun, and you know,
constantly evolving.
Yeah, it's just about evolving.
Yeah.
So
and you're still doing the same thing that you did when you started.
Yeah.
It's all about doing what you do with passion and being committed to it, so you can surf.
That's it.
So
Wait, he's still doing what he did from the start?
From the start.
Yeah.
It's still the same.
So is he still chasing sugar mamas around?
Son of a bitch, I knew. No.
That role
now I'm the
reversed.
sugar daddy.
Sugar daddy.
Yeah, now I'm the sugar daddy.
So that first surf expo was like eye-opening.
Right.
And it showed you how much potential you're
just scratching the surface.
Yeah.
Yeah, you're just scratching the surface.
Yeah, and then it just became like one of those things where I was like, okay, at this point I'm going to look at all the trade shows, do ASR, and then like I said, I was going from coast to coast, and I was my own rep. So I literally did everything from the ground up from tip to tip, A to Z. So I really got to be like, you know, a kind of an expert at every position of the business.
Yeah.
Whether it was like production, QC, quality control, distribution, customer service, and then even
warehouse.
even clearing customs. And you know, that's a part that people don't know anything about, is like shipping.
Yeah. When
you ship containers from overseas and clearing customs, and that's a whole nother logistics that is discredited. And it's a business in itself. It's a challenge in itself as well.
It's
and
crazy.
Again, that's part of the side of the business that would benefit from some that either interned, worked for a professional company, or went to college and kind of knew some of it.
Right.
You know.
Right.
But this is something where you hit that milestone in the company of growing and be like, well, I got these orders. I got a container coming. I got to fucking figure it out.
Right. What's really wild?
That's wild.
What's wild to kind of imagine like if you had a camera, time-lapse camera on your journey from
cool.
Surf Expo to you know what I mean, because like what you're saying, like, and what you're just saying, like you know, you're at Surf Expo, you start meeting all these accounts, you start getting all this business, you start going back to Bali, then you go to Jakarta, and like all these things are entering the picture, you know, the business picture of Island Daze, you know, and you're like, oh shit, I got a computer. Oh shit, I gotta, you know.
Oh, the growth.
What shipping company do I work with? What logistic company do I work with? Like, oh wait, how much is a container? What is it? LCL or less than container load, or
LCL?
All those, like,
it's the sharing. Basically, you're sharing a container.
all those things that start popping up that you have no fucking idea what those things are, but you're learning everything. You know what I mean?
Before Google.
Before Google, before YouTube.
That's what I'm saying, when you're hitting the road, like yellow pages, white pages.
Thomas Guide.
Thomas Guide. Yeah, fuck that Thomas Guide.
So you
guys full of shit.
Yeah.
What do you mean I'm on 98 and I got to jump to 300 and back to 2?
Thomas misguided.
So that's really awesome that you mentioned that, because there's a point when, now I outgrew Jakarta.
Yeah.
You know, and that wasn't good really for me, and it wasn't really healthy with what I was doing in the regards of how quickly I was growing. So then there's a point where I ended up living in Bali for about 6 years. I was going from Jakarta to Bali back and forth and doing production and all that. Yeah. It was a great chapter.
I hope you're still getting barreled.
Oh yeah. That's always the.
Here's one thing too that with all these orders coming in, finance.
Good point. Hang on, we'll touch on that. Yeah, that's a good one though. By the way,
all
because
these good things
that's amazing. Yeah, you're crushing it, Lars. You're slacking.
Dude,
come on, dude.
I was just waiting for you to catch up. I'm sitting back there, drinking my shit. It's like
hydrating.
So from that, after Jakarta, I had family. I've got family that lives in Hong Kong, and they've been there for 30 plus years on my mom's side. So I would go, and visit them, and then realize, you know what, I can maybe go and check out China and just go, because that's really what I want to do. And again, I was doing good, developing good products, but I wasn't really like.
But that's the mecca.
That was the epitome. I was like, I'm gonna attempt to that. And then again, when you're starting out like that, and I'm already,
6 years into
about 6 to 7, 8 years into it. And I go, I got to make this jump. And it's intimidating, right? You go to Asia, you don't know anybody. I had no one told me, go visit this factory. And then the factory told me to go visit this one. There was no contact whatsoever. So I went over to Hong Kong, discovered that there was a factory that was developing some type of like shorts. Like it was like random. I was like, I'll go check it out. My uncle had a friend that was doing business out of that factory years ago, and I was like, I'll go check it out. It's completely naive. I took the ferry over from Kowloon side, got a visa, did the whole thing, visited that factory. That guy said, we don't really do that anymore, but I got another one, and I got a ride over to that factory. So I started getting kind of comfortable traveling around Asia alone, and then sure enough, I found a great factory that I teamed up with in the beginning out of China, and come to find out they were doing one of the majors already, the major brands. Yeah. And I go, wow. I went to the showroom. I was like, holy crap, this is exactly what I wanted.
Did you bring your own samples?
Yeah.
So you could this is, you know somebody that makes this?
Yeah.
Here, you got somebody that makes this?
I always
had the translation and trying to figure out and streamline, we make laptops.
Correct.
Hey, we make freaking lights. Hey, clothing,
correct, and that's exactly what I did. I had a case. I had my backpack. I had a case of my samples. So in case I did meet this quote unquote factory that was going to work with me, I'd had it right on the spot. Boom! I want you to make this, and this to see if it's something that I want to continue actually producing and actually go into production on. So found the right fit after about 2 weeks of traveling around Asia. And then that was sort of a milestone for me. Yeah. Because then that's when I went, But now they want MOQs, which is minimum order quantities, and they're much higher than Indonesia was. And now I got to figure out how to. Now you go, now we're playing with the big boys, right?
Yeah. Did you see a significant quality?
Oh, absolutely.
Change.
It was
price, right?
It was a few things. It was
cheaper.
It was quality. It was price was obviously a little bit lower. It was workmanship, and it was work ethic that I liked a lot.
But you went from no MLQ essentially, kind of just get the order, give you a timeline. Now it's like, hey, we're not going to take this unless you at least hit this number.
Yeah, it was big boy stuff at that point. And it was intimidating, again, because I had no partner to sort of go, hey, what do you think? Should we do this? Should we not? So
6 or 7 years into it.
Yeah.
Were you staffing up? Did
No.
you start?
No, I had.
Still doing it?
During the season, I would hire friends to help me do whatever, X, Y, and Z, and they would work if a shipment came in, they would help me do this, that, and the third.
But your sales
still solo.
shipping department.
Still, at that point, it's like private label. It's not sexy. Nobody's really kind of breaking down the door to come work for me yet, you know? So it was like, okay, I'll do this. And I was still so passionate about it. I had no real desire to let go. I was still micromanaging. I was still sort of like my baby. I was like, and it was working, you know, and I was making good money, and I was actually like seeing profits, but I saw profits right away. So I had no real need to just make it, you know, more complicated for myself hiring somebody else, because now that's a responsibility that I wasn't prepared to do.
Yeah.
And also, I'm a big fan of, we're not there yet. I'm not going to start fronting like I'm the, you know, big shit on the block. I don't feel comfortable bringing in somebody else yet. That's not my style.
Yeah.
When I do get to this point, I'm confident with my product enough where I can bring somebody in and be proud of like, hey, you can go and sell this and you're going to do well and you can rely on me to make a living, then I'll go there. But if not, it's all on me. I'll take the responsibility.
And were you looking at like a 1 or 2 deliveries a year, or like how were you putting product in the marketplace, doing shows?
Yeah, at that point it was spring, summer. That was my big season.
Yeah.
And then I would dabble into fall a little bit, but it wasn't so much. It was more just like spring, summer, I would just go bonkers on. And I was sharing,
but to stay in the retailers,
right,
like, you know,
yeah.
good space, you at least had to offer something.
But yeah, remember, I would actually stock stuff. So now I had inventory.
Nice.
So during the year, and you know, we're in Florida and Hawaii, they can call upon me and I can actually private label, because I had a guy that was sewing labels down the block. So I had all this stuff kind of dialed, and I had enough inventory, and it was kind of pretty perfect actually when it was, you know, manageable and smaller back then. I didn't, you know, I could actually like, you know, breathe a little bit, and I saw money coming in, like I knew where I stood. And now it's kind of like, you know, it's pretty bonkers these days with how big it got, and I'm pretty excited about it.
That's a good thing.
Yeah,
you know,
good problems to face. But yeah. So back to your question about funding. Back then, you know, I was funding my own productions, and it got to the point to where I was outgrowing that, even where I couldn't have enough profits to cover my next production. So credit cards back then would give you 0% financing and up to about $30,000 off of a credit card in cash. So that's how I would play it. I would get a credit card, I would max that, I would get $30,000 in cash, have that for a year, I'd bring in another, pay that one off. So that was kind of the cycle for a while there. And then along with the money I was making on my productions.
Credit card with 0%
interest for a year.
You get all those offers. And, you know, you get.
They stopped doing it, but I kind of worked that to the you know.
When did that? I don't remember that.
Yeah, that was like early 2000s.
Well,
I worked.
Yeah, I mean, you still. I mean, I get all kinds of 0 APRs for next 12 months, 18 months, 6 months, or whatever, and then after that it goes through the fucking roof.
For
Don't ever fucking do the credit card payment, you guys. Pay that shit off.
For our listeners, and if we're trying to like explain the treacherous landscape of being a business owner, right? Like you're financing, because you're stoked.
Right.
You get an order for $50,000, $30,000,
right.
You're like, fuck yeah.
Yeah.
Fuck yeah.
Yeah.
And then you go, how am I going to pay for that?
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. You see, I never had that feeling at all. I just
that's
knew,
a reality.
Yeah. It is.
Multiply that by 40 accounts, 50 accounts, 60 accounts. That's a big fucking knot.
Right. But at that point, I got really good at beg, borrowing, and stealing.
Yeah.
So,
he's been growing it organically.
Yeah.
Like,
But you know what I'm saying?
Totally, 100%.
Because you know, it's one thing to get the order,
right?
But if you can't produce it and ship it,
right?
Pancho, what's your social?
Right.
What's your hey? What's your?
Yeah.
I need a couple more credit cards.
Right.
Like that's what makes or breaks companies. Is like, hey, you got a cool product.
Yeah.
Correct.
Are you going to be able to supply it?
Right. Well, but you see, the thing is there's an art to the other side of business. The other side is production. Mm-hmm. And when you team up with somebody like a factory that has to believe in what you're doing and understand and really want to partner with you, that's an art.
Yeah.
They can make or break your world my world that I'm in right now. You know, as an apparel company. They're just as important as accounts are, or a bank is, or whatever. They're pivotal. And I think that's another thing that gets discredited, is I always felt that those were my partners. And I went into it with that sort of mindset, and I think they felt that most of the time.
Yeah.
And when I did decide to go with a factory, I would stick with them. High times, low times, recessions or whatever it may be, we're together in this.
Yeah.
Because once you find a good partner like that, it's like a marriage.
Yeah.
And I always treated it that way. So when they saw the passion and they saw the work I was doing, I'd get credit.
Yeah, you're
a lot
not
of
seeing
times.
new faces there all the time. Like you're showing up
Yeah.
again and again. They're seeing these numbers grow. You're the face of the brand, and you're not just an employee. You're the freaking brand.
Now in
You are the
China,
brand.
yeah, exactly. But in China, they don't necessarily do that with everybody because they don't really care about your vision and your dreams. They want to get
speak
paid.
English.
No, they do actually.
I'm kidding.
But they don't want to get. They just want to get paid most of
Yeah.
them, and that's understandable. They have a staff and they have their own set of challenges. But when you do partner up and you do sit down and you break bread, they're some of the most amazing people. Without them, I wouldn't be here today. Let's be real. They believed in my dream. They actually funded my dream. To where they gave me the opportunity to grow as big as we are today, which is 550 accounts. It's tremendous. And without them, there would be no Island Daze probably, or much smaller today than we would ever have been. So yeah, I'm extremely grateful for that, and it's the gift of actually like being vulnerable.
Yeah.
And them seeing how much this means to you, and they go, this is different than that last meeting we had with that other guy that had that company, and something seems different here.
And it could be a lot too, the way you're communicating as a passionate street, smart driven, guy versus an executive that's coming over some court, just throwing
trying
some
to cut corners,
just not coming
get a
off
better
the
deal.
way of like you could read through somebody, especially if they're a factory dealing, with many different like vendors and stuff, many different accounts.
But let's go back to
Whoa.
surfing and talk about Billabong.
He's on Rip Curl, dude. What are you talking about?
No. I want to talk about the Billabong Challenge. Right? Those were big killer contests that Poncho.
The skins event.
Yeah.
The Billabong Super Challenge.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
Remember
You won
those?
that one
Yeah, I was fortunate enough to do 2 of those events.
as a Rip Curl team rider?
Yes.
Yeah.
So it was not exclusive to Billabong. It was,
Gotcha. Yeah, I
It was
remember
an
that.
invitational event where
Yeah,
it was
Sonny, Rob, and
Rocky.
They didn't have that many, right?
There might have been 4 total.
Yeah.
And then K2/OP kind
Yeah,
of ran
and
with
they-
it for a
they
couple
came in.
events.
They did?
Yep.
Yeah,
They did that
Mentali's-
mentalized boat trip.
And then the one that you did, was it an Arlu? Was it?
No, I actually did one in Indo on a boat.
You rolled your ankle.
But we didn't get great waves.
Yeah,
It was
yeah.
pretty
Some yo-yos in it.
lackluster. Yeah.
Yeah.
So that was the first one, and then the follow-up event to that was south coast of Australia. Yep. That was amazing. The waves were incredible. It was, really cool environment to be able to surf.
Yeah, because it was
Guys and-
invite only, right?
Yeah, it was an invitation only.
Yeah.
Non-elimination format. There weren't heats. We were just basically searching out the best waves that we could find along the coast, and then we would go out and
Free surf tournament.
free surf, and
Whoever was dominating got money.
essentially, all of the photographers, which they had invited, a slew of incredible cinematographers, photographers, and they were essentially
panel of
the
your
judges.
Your panel
Yeah,
of your
and a panel of the peers, and it was just a consensus of
Yeah.
who was the
Do you-
standout surfer.
Do you remember the surfers that were there with you?
Yeah, it was so Shane Dorian, Sonny Garcia, Connie Robb, Taylor Knox, Aki.
It's kind of amazing
who,
that
yeah.
you were part of a 4-part Billabong Challenge series that the who's who, the icons of
Yeah,
our
sometimes
industry.
Kelly was there. I think he did.
Yeah,
Kelly did,
He
yeah.
did the J Bay one, and
Yeah.
maybe that South Coast or somewhere else.
He didn't do the South Coast one.
Wasn't it
but
West
he-
Oz too?
Narlu.
Ross,
Yeah.
Rob did that one. That was sick
Yeah.
too. That was.
Machado
Machado
won
won
it,
it.
right?
Yeah,
Johnny
he
Boy
won
did it.
that.
Margot, is that a
Johnny
lot?
Boy.
Margot was there.
Yeah, he was in there.
Johnny Boy did one. Huh?
That's the one.
That's the one.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, so it was, I was honored, incredibly honored, to be able to participate in that, and share that experience with all those guys. They were,
Yeah.
it was all good, good people pushing each other. It was like a very positive environment. It wasn't, there wasn't any kind of like, I don't know, like negative competitive energy.
Yeah.
It was really.
I just remember
everybody hooting each other in and fucking psyched for you.
Yeah.
I remember them making breakfast and like frying eggs in a pan,
Yeah.
and you guys were like, "Oh yeah," like what a killer contest.
Yeah.
Waves and like.
Yeah, we talk about it all the time. And like, I mean, the industry, you could have so many different formats, and the WSL is WSL, and you got that like the air shows and the wave pool stuff. It's like, man, I wish I'd really bring back those challenges. You know?
Yeah, I like what Vans did at Pipe this year. That was
that was cool.
I enjoyed that.
Yeah, we had the winner of that contest on
here,
he'll be on the podcast too.
Oh really? Oh, Ball Stack.
Ball Stack.
Yes.
Yeah.
East Coast baby.
Yeah.
That's the way.
I like saying his name.
Ball Stack's the man.
Balaram. Balaram.
He's got Lar in his name. That's all that matters. Talking about me, bro.
He's stacked.
So,
I can tell you that.
Going back to Poncho, like fucking Australia had a thing for you.
Yeah.
Billabong Australia and Rip Curl Australia, like.
Yeah, I got a lot of support from for whatever reason from the Australian companies, and it kind of became like a second home. I was there like 2, 3, 4 times a year. I just love the culture, the people. They're just
so
full of life. And
the Rip Curl contract, was it like, were you making good money?
it slowly started to scale up. I was making enough to pay all my bills, and I was competing in the events in Hawaii and having some success. And I started doing
some like 10 times. Sure.
Well,
many years.
Over the course of the years,
he's modest. He can be modest.
I think I really realized that the free surfing path is so different from the competitive path in the sense that you have to really learn how to condense your surfing. It's also you have to really be on top of your game as far as your equipment, training. Just your whole mindset has to be in a different place.
You trained?
I started to do cross training. I started working with Rob Garcia.
The guys who lift like cars up just for fun.
It was mostly just a lot of muscle imbalance work because surfers, we have those dominant muscles that we use over and over, and then you just become more prone to injury.
Yeah.
So a lot of that was just to kind of even out the muscles and fix some of the muscle imbalances. And
because going back to the story, you weren't on the path of being a pro surfer. You were going to be a fireman.
Yep.
And then here you are, luckily winning, or not winning the contest, but doing well in that sunset contest, and it changed your direction.
Yep.
And now here you are, pro surfer for Rip Curl, making a living being a professional surfer, a free surfer. Really, right?
Yeah, when I signed that 3-year contract, I thought, I'll just enjoy this for 3 years, and then I'll at some point I'm gonna have to segue into life and finding out what my career path's gonna be, and I'll start from there. And it just kind of seemed to just snowball, like all of a sudden that 3-year contract came into another 3-year contract. And,
wow.
Rip Curl really got behind the search, and they were doing films every year, and they made me a big part of that. And we were doing, I would say I was traveling.
So is this Sonny Miller?
Yep, this was Sonny Miller. That evolved into John Frank. Excuse me. They had a number of different filmmakers that they worked with: Larry Haynes, Derek Hoffman, Don King, rest in peace. All of these amazing people that I got to travel with and experience, all these incredible places that I never dreamed about surfing. And it just kind of kept going. And then in the process of that, I felt like I was really fortunate to surf with all of these really high caliber, athletes. And that really had a big impact on my surfing. I felt like it elevated me to push myself and surf at a higher level. And then the competitive results started to come more consistently in the Triple Crown in Hawaii. I started
because there's no pressure. You already had like a free surfing contract.
Yeah.
That was like a bonus, but it was so important to you. You still
I still wanted to compete at home. Mostly the main motivation I always had was I never get to surf sunset with 3 other guys in the water or pipe. Or, it's always crowded.
That's
so,
always the motivation.
Yeah.
Everywhere.
Yeah.
Like,
So I get to go surf for another 35 minutes at perfect Haleiwa. What a dream. And so that was kind of like the motivation there. And so that just, it kept snowballing and, and then next thing I knew, I blinked and 20 years went by and, backing up a little bit, there was a point where Rip Curl had decided to shift gears from a marketing, standpoint and move more into competition.
Away from the search.
Pulling budget from there and putting it into events and competitive athletes.
So they had fanning. Come on, you guys went in everything.
And so at that point, I had realized, hey, I think I've probably gotten to the end of the pathway here. I'm going to transition and move on to something else. But I had a really good Triple Crown season. Did really well in the events. My daughter was born, and I thought, you know what? I've got 1 year left in my contract of guaranteed salary, and I've never competed on the whole tour. I've done events, here and there, spotty, mainly just to ensure that I could get into the Triple Crown. I don't want to look back and regret never doing a full year and trying. And at that point, the WCTA tour was like an amazing contest. And
Dream Tour
was a dream tour.
Yeah.
And I was like, man, that would be incredible. It's like being on the search again, but you're getting paid to compete. There's prize money, and I can support my family that way if it's meant to be. And then I also thought, well, I can bring my wife with me, my daughter, and we can have this amazing experience of traveling to all the contests. So I was like,
mixing business with pleasure.
Full circle. Business with pleasure. And so
that probably just took a lot of pressure off too, because again, your mindset's like, hey, I want to win, but like
your family's at home.
It's not just
your
me. I'm traveling. Right? When are you gonna be home?
Yeah.
You didn't win?
Oh, killer! You got 2 today. I'm changing diapers.
So I wouldn't advise doing this, but I used a credit card and I did like 19 events, and I just kind of figured I started out.
So were you on the QS or was
on the QS?
Okay.
I started out.
But you had a decent seed from doing well in the Triple Crown.
My seed was okay, and then the very first event of the year was pipe, and it was like a 4-star event, and I won that event, and I was like, okay, there's my start.
Pipe was the first event.
It was the first
Quicksilver.
Just like-
a Quicksilver Volcom,
just like
or before
now.
that
It was the
HI
Monster Energy
Monster
event.
Before that was
And so
changed names, but
I won that, and I kind of looked at the whole schedule and went, okay, if I do these select events in quality waves, and then then I've got to do a number of events just to give myself an average, and if I can give myself a shot coming into the Triple Crown at the end of the year at Haleiwa and Sunset, then maybe there's a shot for me to get on the tour. And so went all over the place, and got a few results in I think like in France, where else, Portugal. I gave myself just enough of a shot. I was like way outside of the cut. I think I was like 27 or something like that on the QS going into Hawaii.
so you had to kill Hawaii.
So I knew I had to do really well in Hawaii in order to make it. And I won Haleiwa and moved all the way up into like, I don't know, somewhere in the cut, within the cut, like 12 or
For the
something
CT.
like that, to qualify for
It
the
was
CT.
a 16 cut at that time, or
It was 16
Yeah.
at that time, and then I got another result at Sunset. I think I made the semis, so I finished somewhere in the top. I don't even remember. Somewhere in the top 10. Like.
But you needed that result to qualify.
to be able to
or
qualify. Yeah.
Haleiwa wasn't enough.
Haleiwa was enough, but the result at Sunset moved me up a few more spots.
Gotcha.
So where obviously if you're just making the cut, then you're surfing against the top seed in every single event.
Gotcha.
So it's extra sugar on top.
It's
Yes,
just
it's
nice.
just yeah.
Yeah.
yeah, the bottom I don't know, 4
So you
or
made the
6,
CT.
and then the wild cards get
So I
to
ended
go to the top
making the
6 or 8
CT.
on the CT.
I'm so glad when we get CT surfers on the show.
Yeah.
which was a little unconventional.
Hey, I hung out at a lot of them. I watched a lot of them. I'm actually.
I know you did.
You see greatness.
Yeah.
Yeah, a little late in life. You know, I was 32 years old when I qualified. And
But what a fucking like ironic turn of events in your journey of not ever trying to be pro, right? And then
But always having the dream, but
he never pursued it. Like he was gonna be
Yeah.
a fireman, and the guy Orion
Yeah.
made you surf the contest, and there it was.
yeah,
You know, like fucking crazy. Like it's mind blowing that, you know, and you were a free surfer.
Yeah.
From Australia. Australia people were whatever. Like they're the ones who took notice of your surfing, your talent.
yeah,
And that's so weird. Like
yeah.
that's so weird that Billabong, Australia, Rip Curl, Australia.
Well, yeah. I mean, I think that, you know, because Billabong Australia decided to feature me, I think that gave me a little bit more visibility and a profile in Australia within the magazines, and that
made you more valuable because you're probably getting a lot of coverage from Hawaii and just being a Hawaiian in the U.S. mags. But now you're kind of double dipping more than a lot of the other athletes.
I also think they appreciated your surfing more. I think
For
them it was the
Power.
raw power, the Michael Peterson, that kind of like
Richard Cram.
I think it
Like,
was that.
yeah.
I think
You
really,
were-
even when you were younger.
They were looking
You were
for the
surfing that way.
American Margot.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Maybe. I don't know.
Yeah.
I think
But
that's kind of what it comes.
Another crazy thing is like in today's world, who else, I mean, in history, right? In surfing professional history, who qualifies for the world tour
At 32.
at 32?
I think you're the only one.
I might still be holding that down. I'm not sure.
I don't think they're getting any older.
You know, it was
No.
Getting younger. That's
Yeah.
about it.
Katie Simmers is 16 years
Yeah,
old.
won. Yeah, didn't she just win
She just won her first.
in Portugal?
Yeah.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
But
She's
that's so crazy.
I don't know. Kelly's fell on and off a couple times.
Yeah,
he
yeah,
might be in
he's-
his 40s when he jumped back.
Yeah,
in.
but he was on the world tour at like 19.
Yeah.
19 or
18.
20.
Yeah. Well, like, you know, again, it was sort of a decision. The decision I made to do it was, a lot of it was based on the birth of my daughter and going, you know, I want to be able to share with her when you have opportunities that, you know, to just seize them and do everything you can, you know, so that you don't have any regrets. And if you're passionate about something, you know, go full force into it so that you, even if it doesn't work out, I'm a firm believer that some other pathway will open,
Yeah.
and you'll end up where you're supposed to be.
Yeah.
And I didn't want to look back and go, you know, I had this opportunity, I was traveling around the world and I got to compete, and, you know, but I never tried to qualify.
Yeah.
You know, I didn't want to have that regret. So
What's funny is you could tell her, hey, you helped me qualify because you traveled with me all over the world.
yeah, it was, I mean, it definitely kept me present where I was.
Yeah.
You know, to have my wife and my daughter there, I wasn't missing any, you know,
Yeah.
those special moments. I
You
never
didn't
wanted
have
to
something
do
in the
that.
back of your mind gnawing at you, feeling guilty. You were like, I'm
Yeah.
here. My family's here.
Yep.
I'm going to rip this wave.
But just the fact that you're
Hold my beer.
you're surfing at the caliber of, you know, the world's best. Not that 32 is old, because that's not, you know, you're a Grom at 32 now. No, but you know what I mean? Like, you know, it's got to be intimidating because, you know, you're definitely competing with guys, you know, almost half your age.
Yep.
You know?
Yeah.
Yeah, there's so many little ants that are in their tweens.
Yep.
Fucking, you know, like, wow, like I never knew that. And that I think a lot of people out in the world don't know that Poncho Sullivan qualified at age 32.
Yeah.
Right? Like,
Dude, I'm going back.
you better tell JJ to step it up.
Yeah. God, we're going together.
Tour together.
Where's the Masters tour?
You guys should both start training and try to see if you can get back on.
Dude.
That'd be a good
yeah.
series.
Just wanna,
That would
A
be
good show.
Yeah.
How funny would that be if you did a world tour, dad tour.
That'd be awesome.
Dude, it's
I'd watch
happening
it.
right now. There's some kids coming up. I mean,
Dino,
Dorian, and
Bashid.
Yeah, Bashid.
It'd be
There's
fun.
a lot of good.
It'd be really fun to do. Also.
That would be so
it'd be
funny.
fun. Keep it kind of low budge, almost like regional.
Yeah.
It'd be fun.
Yeah, but I mean, what a great
Hey,
career.
we'll call it the Late Night with Chalky Island Days tour.
I'm in. I'm down.
Did
That'd be entertaining.
And you did the CT for 4 years?
3 years.
3 years.
Yeah. So when my
Damn.
son, then, after the first year on tour, my son was born in November, and then we traveled together as a family, and my wife and I decided that when we reached the point when the kids were going to start school, that I wanted to be done by then. I didn't want to be, I grew up without a dad, and I didn't want to be that dad that was gone all the time. I just wanted to enjoy every moment, every milestone in their life, and so that was kind of, hey, when we get to that point, if I'm still going on tour, no matter where I'm at, rating wise, like that's it. I'll be done, and it'll be
It's a
time
good
for the
plan.
next step.
Yeah.
I mean, it's got to be hard, especially it's coming from traveling the world to be like, you know what, I'm just gonna stay home now. It's a big shock.
Yeah. Well, I think what was made the transition a lot easier was I had a great relationship at that point with my sponsor, with Rip Curl. They gave me a great opportunity, put me through a training program, brought me into as a sales and marketing director for Hawaii, and they still said, hey, you're allowed to continue to compete in Hawaii. So I still did that for a couple more years.
After the tour?
After I got off tour, I still.
But 3 years on the tour.
Yep.
I mean, to stay on tour, you're doing well.
Yeah.
Making
finals.
having results.
Yeah.
God, I love having guys that do.
And I'm
good
so proud too that it wasn't just gnarly chokes and pipe. Like this guy made a 5 lowers, like in ripping.
Yeah, it was it definitely when you're in that environment, that competitive environment, and you really start to hone in on your technique and you try to improve across the board. I think that I really enjoyed that process. I kind of learned through working with a lot of great people, Reynos Hayes, Chris Gallagher, Matt Griggs, coaches Ben Ipa, rest in peace. Guys that really the focus was always how to elevate your surfing, how to refine your technique, and it was the one thing that you can control and not think about the result. Because if you narrow your focus on those things and you elevate your surfing, the results are going to take care of themselves. You're gonna, they'll come eventually. But like Gally always said, you're going to lose a lot more than you win, and it's about maintaining that, that
even
level,
keel,
even keel, and
it's funny.
It's hard. You travel across the world. You have all this money invested, time and energy to get there, and then you get some weird, high tide heat. No waves come in. And you gotta go. Okay,
No waves come in. Did I have a jersey on?
Oh my God.
What's crazy is
Next event.
professional surfing is gotten so professional. Like there's so many things, because back in the day, professional surfing was
Party hard,
surfing,
throw a jersey on. And
guys shape their own boards. Like it was archaic, right? Like there's no real preparation, no real training.
Cross training and
maybe some people
nutritionists
and
now
no coaching.
Yeah,
nutritional,
No, it was
less structure, I think.
way less structure.
Yeah.
definitely.
And less professional, right?
Yeah.
And over the years, with coaching and nutrition and weight, whatever, all that stuff has made it more exciting and competitive and elevating the game. But the coaching thing, there's always been coaches, right?
Mm-hmm.
For
There
a
has,
lot longer than the other things that we talked about. But the coaching is so gnarly because,
there's just different type. Let's break it down too. There's different types of coaching.
yeah, strategy,
there's strategy, time management. There's just people that are there as moral support and in your head on what boards to ride. And then there's kind of handlers that kind of like take the travel out of the, and some do multiple tasks, and then some are very specific. But
you brought up Reynos Hayes, coach, Chris Gallagher.
Yep.
Tactician for sure.
We just had
Reynos. Fucking
Balaram,
Balaram. You're never gonna be a freaking.
Got coached by
out breathing yourself.
Got coached by it was a cool thing to hear too, because Mick Kane, right?
Mick Kane from
Australia. Was coaching Balaram, and the cool thing that Balaram told us was that, hey, surf at 70%.
Yeah, that's
And we were just like,
best.
what?
Yeah,
Surf at 70%?
Yeah.
And he's like, yeah, because you're not over excited, you're not over exerting yourself, you're not trying too hard,
and you're going to be consistent.
And you're going to get the scores.
Mid-score,
get a 7. Get a
scores.
7.
Right.
Yeah.
And with that mentality, you keep a even keel, and you're a little bit more subdued and not excited.
2s or 10s,
Right.
you can't survive on that, because you're going to get a lot more 2s and 10s, if any. And
But we had Jake Patterson on before, Jake the Snake, and it's just so crazy because when you think of surfing, it's so individual, right?
Yeah.
It's so individual. It's so,
he was a late bloomer too.
It's more luck than anything,
Not
right?
32.
But you have to create that luck for yourself.
Yeah.
And that's what coaches do, is like put you in the right mindset of competing.
I talked to, when we talked to Jake, and I know because like I was doing the QS and had a little
You
bit
didn't
of
talk
seed.
to him enough though, bro.
No, I know. He was great because we were doing the Zoom. But he came on and he was like first round. So him and Aki, I just remember those two specifically. No seed, first round of the event, first heat, every event. Because they went off last year. It's not like how you progress.
Yeah.
And in some of these events is like 9 rounds, 10 rounds.
Yeah.
So they were just machines. Like so much that like they when Aki came back after retirement and Jake, they blew through like on tour, like leading the QS or at least top few. I think Taj might have done it too, and he kind of took a year off. But those. Just the mindset, every condition and places that, from shitty to good waves, they were just on a fucking, they were machines. Machines. Yeah. And most people, spike, have a good result, and they have a few bad ones. These guys are just, the whole year was just like this till the end. You're like, speaking of like 70%, you're like, they took that literally for the whole year. Not peak, just freaking steady. It was fucking mind-blowing.
Yeah.
And then, of course, he got on tour and was just, crushing events like left and right. But it's just interesting, because the tour is a marathon and not a race.
Yeah, definitely.
And that's
having that. You gotta hand it to people that consistently stand on the podium, because it's like, how do you do that? Hard, like when you really watch contests and you like root for certain people and you're like, he's on it. He's not on it. What happened? And then it's the other guy, and you're just like, it's such a roller coaster of,
Yeah, I think at that level, everybody surfs so well. You're looking within yourself, whether it's you're analyzing your equipment, analyzing like, your cross training program. Am I stretching enough? Things like that you want to try to do everything you can to elevate your surfing and give yourself the best odds. And a lot of it is really is confidence. I think once you get that, get a result or two, and you start to feel that confidence, and you go out there and you can almost visualize the right waves coming to you. You everything slows down. You're not over surfing the sections. You're kind of just flowing and letting everything come to you. And I think that's when you see those guys like that, like Aki or Jake, just go on these crazy runs. They it's almost like, in a lot of ways, I think starting from the earlier rounds can be a benefit. Because you're warm. You're coming up against guys that have been waiting, since the start of the waiting period, and they haven't surfed yet. Contests has maybe been, can't postpone.
The sandbars dialed them down. At the crack of dawn, they've been, they're really in tune.
They're loose and they're in tune.
And that's something to be said about that.
Yeah, just, taking care of yourself, regimen, and food, boards, and you're just kind of checking off these variables, to where it's like, okay, that's off my plate. Okay, I got that dial. Okay, and it just starts narrowing the
focus.
The focus, and again, leading to more opportunities and better turnouts. But man, contests are, you surf a 20-minute or 30-minute heat, and you get out, and it's like you're so just. And the waves couldn't even be like challenging or pumping. You're having to like exert all this, but you're just so fucking drained. You're like mentally and physically, you're like, what the,
I kind of see surfing competitively kind of reminds me of a little bit of like being so singular, like tennis and golf. Like you watch anything with those guys and they're losing, and you watch any kind of documentary like behind the scenes of that, and it's like this, experience of like, training so hard and getting to this place and getting knocked out the first round. You see the defeat and just, the crushing feeling of like, damn, man, I came all this way for that. And then just to pick yourself up and to keep going and polish it. But that's what builds champions.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like if you see Novak Djokovic, like those guys are kind of like the Italos of our sport, and they're constantly doing whatever it takes to make sure they're at the peak.
And the greats just don't rely on their surfing ability,
right,
or their understanding of the lineup or the waves, but understanding their competitor and knowing, how to get them out of position, or hey, he likes to start earlier, go deeper, and how to take that person off their game. Those are the true greats, and it's fucking. It's pretty wild because you see it.
Mind tricks.
The art of competition.
The art of competition, for sure. Yeah. So after surfing, Rip Curl gave you a position.
Yeah, so they
marketing
gave me a position as sales rep, and put me through a training program, and off I went, learning the trade, and I was always really interested in products since the very beginning of my time with Rip Curl. I used to do product R&D. I used to write reports. I really enjoyed that aspect, and I always kind of had my eye on, hey, when this is over, what am I going to do? Yeah. I can't rely on this forever.
It's hard to be a fireman at 30 something.
yeah. Or go back to school, or I was sort of like, hey, if I really conduct myself in a good professional manner, and I
Poncho fucking Sullivan, you're gonna buy this fucking board short and this fucking hoodie.
So I got really into product, and so it was a kind of a natural progression. I felt like, being a surfer, somebody that's been wearing this product for 20 years, and putting it to the test, I learned all about the different fabrics and stitching, and really kind of became a student of the product themselves,
which probably blew away like the buyers and the owners of the shop, like coming in is like
a living legend.
Most people are like, oh, surfer, like they just gave Pancho, but you come in prepared and you're like, hey, I understand your business and this is where we're pushing and this fabric's great, and having that understanding of the side of the business probably really helped.
Not only is he a powerful surfer, he's a powerful PowerPoint presenter.
PPP. Say that.
PPP.
Say that 3 times.
Yeah. So I
you took over sales.
Sales in Hawaii, and I grew the sales, steadily over a 4-year period, and saw some success there. Became sales rep of the year 2 years in a row.
Nice.
And
why you gotta brag, bro?
He's got it. Flex.
I was proud of that. Coming from surfing, I was proud.
Yeah.
It was a lot of work. I remember being incredibly stressed, looking at the numbers that I was trying to hit, and I also took a lot of pride in what I was doing, and I really cared about the accounts that I was working with, and I wanted them to believe in the product. I wanted them to believe in me. I wanted to provide the best possible service that I could, and I wanted the product to be successful up until that point. Rip Curl didn't really have a big footprint in any of the stores in Hawaii. So they were sort of like, in the past we carried it, but we had some success with it, but it wasn't like the best.
It wasn't an easy sell. Like you had to carve out your
and at that point there was a whole new management team that had come into place. Kelly Gibson, Dylan Slater. They hired amazing designers, and so the line was really evolving. And when I came on board, so we grew the sales significantly. Things were moving along, but Abe and I, we've been friends since we were 18, and I was watching his company grow, and we would talk about, the line and his line and like how stoked we are and what we were doing.
And you were helping, like you're bouncing ideas off each other the whole time I would communicating.
Yeah, I would come to the North Shore every year.
Here's this Rip Curl shirt I'm sending you, check it out.
No,
I'm just
kidding. It was nothing like that. It was more so like, I as a friend, I was leaning on him as, his business acumen, his sales experience, like, hey, like, this is all kind of new to me, and this is the things I'm going through, and trying to build this business, that just, that part of our relationship, it was like a new part of our friendship. We were surfing together, vibing about business, stoked, like, I was stoked for him going, wow, man, you're killing it. Your company's growing. I'm watching the product just get better and better and better. And then
it's got to be like cool, like sitting there in the lineup, you doing your thing.
Because you guys your paths were right next to each other, but different lanes. And now it's like merging together. And now you're like, wow, this is killer.
And
that's pretty.
I'll never forget. We were like actually pulled up. We were watching the waves at sunset, and he's like, my company's at a point where, like, we've grown significantly, and I think that it would be amazing to work together. We're great friends, and I've got an opportunity where we can basically, you can manage and control the distribution for Hawaii to where the accounts are being well looked after. They're not having to compete with one another. You can help me with design. Hawaii has specific needs, as far as the styles and certain camo and rasta and
he's more boots on the ground, eyes and ears, because what Hawaii needs is a little different what the East Coast needs versus what California and everything. So it's super important to have like that intel and somebody that's like got their hand on the pulse. Foot on the pulse, hand on the pulse,
finger on the pulse.
I'm way off. Fucking body parts.
Yeah, and I think at that point it was like, flying over there and kind of showing my own line was kind of getting a little bit old, and I couldn't keep up with it too. Like, these accounts needed to be serviced year round. And at that point we sat in his truck checking the waves at sunset, and we sort of just came up with an idea of just, what would work for him and financially what it would take. And we hugged it out and said, okay, let's do this.
Nice.
And that was it. And it's been 10 years now.
Yep.
So yeah, it's been an amazing ride, and I love him like a brother, and we have so much deep history, obviously on a personal level, and now business, and we nonstop talk about work and how we can evolve this and better fabrics and fits and blah blah blah. But it's so exciting and fun to share it with somebody you trust and really want to be around it. So it's really cool. And as the team has grown so much to an art department and a huge sales force now and management and all that, I still have that core relationship with Poncho about just doing the next thing, the next chapter, the next capsule, so it still remains so much fun because you have somebody to share that with. So I'm completely honored by it and excited for the future.
Well, a month ago or whatever, when we got on the phone, you text me like, hey, you have time to talk? And I was like, yeah, sure. And then you say, hey, this is what I've been doing. I go, yeah, I know, I follow you, I see what's going on. And you had the conversation, and it's like, here we are. There's years where we were like super tight, hanging out, and then life's changed, and then I'm like, wow, fuck, that'd be rad to work together, like it'd be fucking sweet, 20 years later, here we are, like it's fucking epic.
And that's really a big part of Island Daze. I feel like has always been, we want to work with people that we like, and that where there's that synergy and there's good energy, and we love to be, of course as you're working, you want to enjoy the people that you're around, and to be able to celebrate those little wins, and keep evolving and growing.
So let's talk about some of these like side projects, the board short, bottle opener board short, and watches. Anything else that you guys?
A while back, I'd say about 6 years ago. I was up coast with some friends surfing, and had a cooler full of beer. Came in and really couldn't really figure out how to open them without a bottle opener, and then we were just trying to like hit it on the side of the tables and all that, and we've got this idea on the way home, like how can we do something better than the sandal thing? It's kind of gross, and it just after about 2 weeks of just tooling and working with my factory, I came up with a thing called the BBO, the board short bottle opener, and it's on a pocket flap of a board short or any type of apparel that has some type of flap. I patented, design patent and utility patent, so it's been really exciting. Yeah, it was cool. Like the Today Show picked it up and did a great 1-minute spot on it, and they actually found us and did this thing, so it was a really big honor. Normally like you'd have to pay for that type of exposure, that type of exposure in PR, and they kind of found us, so it's pretty cool, and that sort of catapulted into like the next stratosphere. I mean, we were killing it. It was amazing, and I never advertised it anywhere, but that one plug, and it went bonkers. So we took it as a company as far as we could take it, being a private label company. Yeah. Obviously, we don't have team riders, and there's no sort of marketing behind it. So what we did is we opened it up to the industry. So we had some of the majors, a lot of them, about four of them wanted to do it, license it from us, and Billabong ended up licensing it, and took it for several seasons and did really well with it, and now it's back in our court, and we have it back in our line, so it's pretty exciting. So we'll launch that coming this 2024 season, and yeah, it's back in our hands. We can kind of have fun with it again, so it's pretty cool.
Yeah, I mean, surfers live in board shorts. Yeah.
Yeah, surfers drink beer.
Yeah, and surfers drink beer, and most surfers are pretty handy on figuring out how to open a beer bottle, but when it's right there on your shorts.
A lot of broken teeth.
Right.
Yeah, or jack rings, or no, thank you.
The cool thing about it is that we had a time to sort of like let Billabong do their thing with it, and we had a chance to sort of like breathe a little bit and reflect on what else can we do with this thing. So we kind of put it on a flap of like a traditional fishing shirt, but we hyped up the fishing shirt, and it's called the Bimini, and it's like the coolest thing, and it's taken off, and it's doing really well. It's a phenomenal like outdoor
which is
shirt.
going to open you to another market.
Sure, sure. Which we'll do like ICAST trade show in, I want to say July, I think. So that's going to be exciting. And just keep evolving and service industries that need what we're doing and have a demand for it, and we're going to continually turn over every rock we can and service the markets.
Nice.
Yeah, so it's exciting.
So let's talk a little surf, because we can't get too can't bore our listeners with
just too much business.
No, it's actually really like inspiring and educational for sure. But like I don't everywhere I always like tell, if you could hop on a freaking plane boat ship, where would you go right now?
I'd go to Desert Point. Point. Blindly.
Goofy.
Yeah, 100%. I'd see Booty and high five him and hang out with my buddy Jonathan, and we'd go out and have some fun. Do you wear any reef gear? Booties, vest, Nah, just I like wearing a rash guard and board shorts and a lot of sunscreen. Yeah. Because you have to sit out there these days. There's so many people. You got to wait your turn, and a lot of sun going on out there, and. Yeah, that'd be my go-to spot. Deserts, not even low tide anymore. It's actually a myth. It kind of breaks better in the incoming and almost like a high. Yeah, it's pretty crazy. Nice. Yeah, it's awesome. I love that place.
Poncho?
Yeah.
Oh,
too many good ways to think about it.
Yeah, you've been to all of them.
I have a tough time with this because I like
one crazy one.
I like
where can we go tomorrow?
You could just think about the wave, or you could think about the wave and the kind of crowd, culture and the atmosphere and the location. But like
when I think of that, I always go to Tahiti, just because it's I love the people there. I love the culture. The ocean is just it's got so much power. And it's such a euphoric feeling, and it doesn't necessarily have to be like Bay Chopo or anything like that. There's so many other waves to surf there.
I tell everybody 4 to 6 foot Chopo is like
it's a dream.
It's the fucking one of the best waves on the planet. And then when it gets 8 foot, you're like, is this the same wave?
2 foot more.
Is it? How come now it's this thick? And
2 foot more. You're like, I can't find my fins anywhere. I just stay up on land. And
wait, why does it go down? And why is it
twisted my ankle?
It goes from this like perfect to like ugly
mutant.
Yeah, with different breed of people that like charge that.
What about you guys?
Because I think our first trip was for that. My first trip was that QS event, and it's like I think you're out one morning. I come out on the boat with Pete Frieden. He's like, we knew the swell was gonna be pumping, and I'm like, I'm like, fuck, it's like a mile out. You can't see anything but whitewater. It's like dark, and I'm like, oh, I don't know. And Pete's like, we're in the heart, we're at the dock, and it's fucking rocky, so it's gonna be big. I'm like, oh great shit. And we get out there, and it's like, there's like 12 dudes out there, and there's a boat, a few boats more pulling up, and I'm looking at it going, what the fuck is this?
So scary.
And like, Wakita, like, Braden Diaz, like Cy Smiley, like I think you might have been out there or paddled out that morning. There was like equivalent of like 10 or 12 dudes that would go on fucking anything. Like, and nobody's going on anything. A couple guys going for insiders, and then sets coming, everybody's just fucking over it. And I'm like,
what am I gonna do?
Yeah. Guys that would go for anything weren't going on anything.
No.
Wow.
I swear.
That's heavy.
And I was like, I'm gonna get a couple. I'm like, I don't care. Maybe I'm not going for a set. No way, because those guys aren't going for sets. But I'm gonna. And Pete Frieden, the photographers are hyping you up. I'm like, all right. And I get a couple. Don't even get really. Well, you think you're getting barrel, but it's like you're racing, it's bending, and you're fucking in and out of a couple. And there's the boys, and they're just being super selective. And a couple guys sent it, and who knows what the fuck happened to them. And I'm kind of just inside the pack, and like me and a handful of guys, and Keala Kinley's like right there, like behind me, and all of a sudden the whole ocean goes fucking black. And the biggest set that swung wide, I mean, everybody's like, I'm like, if I don't make it through this, I'm dead. Yeah. Like I just knew, I'm like, I'm gonna fucking die. And I just barely get through, and I look down, and like fucking 30 feet down is like 3 people in Keala like belling. And I just get over that one. I'm like, I just don't get sucked over, and I barely made it over the sets. And she got annihilated. Like she got picked up, and she couldn't even surf the vent or something. She was like fucking filleted. Yeah. And I don't surprise nobody died. And I was like, and then it turned on shore, and they called the contest off. Yeah. And I'm like, yes. I'm like, awesome. Thank goodness. Yeah. They got a little on shore, and they're like, yeah, I think the winds are gonna be bad. Plus, I think they were like, it was heavy. And that was like, that was going from like, you guys, wow, this wave is really fucking fun and killer. And then you hear about how gnarly it gets, and that morning was like,
code red.
No, thank you.
Yeah. Almost code red.
Yeah, I don't know. It was big. I looking back, it was so long ago. I just remember like watching a lot of guys not go. Yeah. One because you had to be really pinpointing in the right spot.
Positioning out there is crazy.
But it was intense. But yeah, thanks for I will not go back there on a day like that. But Tahiti's so
cold sweats tonight about it.
But going to your point of the people, like the coming from Hawaii has aloha there. Right.
It's times 10.
It's just like the fucking coolest vibe, and it's picture perfect. Like, you look
everywhere
around and you're like, it's not a drop out of
heaven
spot.
on there.
Everywhere like a studio.
Yeah.
It's gorgeous.
But I mean, when you talk about traveling, there's waves like Mentawais, it's like, there's so much variety, and it's so rippable, and it barrels, and it's like insane, and macaronis, HTs, like rifles, fuck.
Indo's
Indo's incredible. I think as far
that's
as
where I would want to go.
Performance wise, it's definitely the best place in the world.
But like, Portugal, Hossegor on good days, how does the beach break get this fucking perfect? It could be lowers, or it could be just throating, and J Bay, and like there's this. I mean, there's so many ways so spoiled like that are so good. But we like surfing.
Yeah,
that's what we talk about.
What keeps us going.
What are you riding board wise?
All town and countries.
Town and country.
Yeah, it's funny. It's full circle. Remember, like I was saying, like just to have one town and country at Bird Surf Shop was my dream, and now I've got quivers of
Who shapes them?
Pangs. They're
Glenn
all
Pang.
Yeah, he's the man, the best shaper.
His kid's charging now, right? Makana or
no, that's Glenn Payne. Not Glenn.
No, Glenn Pang's the shaper.
She's
Yeah.
I'm blank right now. It'll come to it.
It's a Pang kid,
Dennis.
though, right?
Dennis Pang.
Dennis Pang's kid.
Yeah.
Okay.
McConnell, yeah, he charges.
Okay.
Yeah, Town and Country. It's just funny because we do business with them. Obviously, we do all the the majority of the private labeling, board shorts, and all that. But talk about full circle. It's just incredible. I can call them and I want this, I want that, and it's still like we go back to like when you receive things in the mail and you just open it up and that you get that sort of box of boards. It's just an incredible feeling still. It never gets old ever. Ever. So
and
it's the coolest thing. New fresh sticks.
When you work for a brand, whether whatever brand you're working for, you're still like have that little kid in you, and you're fans of like so many of the other brands, and then of course like TNC is like fuck
HIC, Local
HIC,
Ocean. These
Blue
are
Hawaii
iconic brands. We have so much respect for. It's the coolest thing.
What about you, Ponch? What are you riding?
Still riding a lot of Bushmans, and actually started riding some Will Scoville surfboards. He's a really good shaper, Kauai.
Nice. It's always good to have a local shaper and support that's local, and they know what's best too for that area.
Yeah, he's a great surfer, super humble individual, family man. He built, put everything, his heart and soul into this surfboard factory that he built, and shapes boards for a lot of young up and coming groms, and living on Kauai, I just wanted to support a local guy as well.
Yeah. Are they called Scoville surfboards?
Yeah. Will Scoville. And he's got some really great models. The Moon Whip, which I've been riding a lot.
Moon Whip, I like that.
Yeah, really, really good boards.
So tell our listeners your dimensions.
Mine?
Yeah. What kind of volume?
Shortboard.
It's funny. I ride some of his shortboards. It's kind of funny.
My shortest board is usually like 6'4", 19 3/4, 2 and almost 2 3/4 these days.
Yeah. Foams. I like a lot of foam.
Yeah, me too.
You ride a pretty bigger board.
I ride a lot of
A lot of foam.
Yeah.
Fucking foam is your friend.
Foam is your friend.
I was never the strongest paddler. My I've got like a heavy bone structure weight wise, and so it's not that easy to pull all that.
You got T-Rex
through the water. No, but and then I like a longer rail line as well. Like I'm not a vertical surfer. I'm kind of more.
And you still work closely with like Futures, meaning you have like your own model fin and everything, and you've been good. Those guys have been great to you, huh?
They've been amazing. Yeah, they're I love the system. They just keep evolving as well, adding different construction. Bringing on shapers, amazing shapers, and new templates, and really always fine tuning, tweaking things. They're passionate.
You got to go back and listen to some of her stories because
for sure.
Like the Vince, like the Futures story.
Mm-hmm. Epic.
He's in the middle of nowhere. Like I think it might have been.
He's a nomad.
Lombok or somewhere. And this is like in the 90s, and he sees these Australians show up with the first like FCS. He happened to be coming from a family of like engineers, and they like his grandpa had like a fabrication company, and then him and his brother were doing like plastic molding for shit.
Wow.
So they already had that, and he shows up, this Australian, and he looks at it, and he's like,
I can make that.
I can make that
better.
And within a week, he had a prototype. Came home, or not in a week, but after he went back, he came back and came up with his own deal.
Full visionary.
Yeah.
I love it.
Yep.
And they're like, it's just fucking rad.
It's like their science lab.
It's just meant to be. Like, here you get this guy that specializes in fucking molds and plastic and shit, and then he sees that and be like, I'm a surfer.
Yeah, he loves to surf. And,
he's epic.
And always like, evolve and try new stuff, and always looking to improve
how to make it better.
The foil. And
that spirit of entrepreneurship.
Yep.
It's so cool to see.
Mixing business with pleasure.
Yep. All day.
Dude, we're going on 4 hours.
Dude.
It feels like 2.
I know.
It does, right?
Yeah.
I can talk to you all day.
And
again, we'll, in the future, we'll come back and have like separate podcasts and dive deeper into stuff. I mean, people eat up the surf and, the surf and the contest aspect and traveling and, that. And Hawaii and North Shore,
thank
for
you
sure.
guys for having us.
This has been amazing.
Yeah. We want to thank you guys also for the support with the Island Days and coming on board and having you two here and with us, and
we're pumped.
Moving Craig Beck as our new hire.
Dude, Craig's awesome too. I knew who he was. Craig as an industry dude. I'm like, I know who he is. I've seen him. I know his name.
He's a
but
legend.
he's fucking epic.
Yeah.
Like we're stoked that he's part of the team.
Yeah, moving him to
We're part
our
of your guys' team because he was there.
Yeah, well, having him now as our sales manager is going to be pivotal for us, and helping us get to that next chapter. And
he needs his own podcast with all the shit that.
Oh
his episode on our podcast is like the shit he went through. Like you said, we should have been recording the other night on the table because that gave me the
too
chills.
much gold.
You got to bring him in though, and just have him one-on-one. He's just he's a character. He's got a lot of interesting stories. He's a good guy.
Yeah.
Well, congratulations.
Thank you.
On creating an amazing brand that's servicing a need that every surf shop and any business really.
Mm-hmm.
So
shop your local surf shop because most likely the Island Daze is going to be supporting all of us and kick ass premium product.
Yeah, support surf shops.
That's it.
Yeah. Buy local. That's for sure.
Yeah. Dude, let's go surfing.
Yes.
Let's go eat. Peace.
Yeah.
Peace.
Yeah, guys, you guys crushed it. It was
Thanks,
awesome.
Thanks, dude.
It was way easier than I thought it was going to be.
So we don't ask anything.
My first podcast.
That's your first podcast?
That I ever did on the mic. I mean, I've done videos and things like that about my company, but never like this platform, which is really cool.
Thank you.
And,